Chapter 3280. Scoundrel. Aunt Jing had been in the imperial palace for a long time. When had she ever seen such an impudent and rude woman? She was truly angered to the point that her heart ached. What is it? The young crown princess walked out of the door and saw Yuan Xiong, Er's disheveled and tearful appearance. It was as if someone here had bullied the mother and daughter. She frowned and looked coldly at Yuan Xiong. What are you doing? When Yuan Xiong saw the young crown princess walk out of the room, she hurriedly hugged the child and struggled with all her might. She repeatedly cried out, Crown Princess, please save 8th young Miss's life, Crown Princess. The two little palace maids who were holding her didn't dare to kill her because they were obstructing her from carrying the child. In the end, Yuan Xiong broke free from them. Yuan Xiong stumbled and fell at the young crown princess's feet with the child in her arms. She wailed loudly and shouted, Crown Princess, please be merciful and save 8th young Miss's life. Arbor coldly glanced at her. The bone-chilling coldness in her eyes made Yuan Xiong shiver all over for no reason. The young crown princess's eyes were too cold, as if she was looking at a corpse. Yuan Xiong subconsciously hugged the baby in her arms tightly. 8th young Miss Mu Roshua was only 20 months old from birth. Being tightly held by Yuan Xiong, she burst into tears. Pull her away. The young crown princess coldly shouted. A few low-level servant women pounced over. One of them grabbed Yuan Xiong's collar and pulled her away from the young crown prince consort. Yuan Xiong cried out in alarm, and the child in her hands was snatched away. Her eyes instantly reddened, and she screamed crazily. What are you doing? Are you trying to snatch someone's child in broad daylight? She didn't expect that the young crown princess would order people to attack her the moment she saw her. Not only that, she even directly snatched the child in her arms. What was she trying to do? Was she trying to kill her 8th young mistress by throwing her to her death? At this thought, Yuan Xiong couldn't help but tremble all over. She stared at Arbor in horror, as if she was a poisonous snake or a fierce beast. Crown Princess. An old nanny gently handed the child to Arbor. Arbor looked down and saw that the little person's face was already red from being strangled. Coupled with the fact that he was crying nonstop, his mouth had sucked in a lot of air. At this moment, he was panting and gasping for air with his little mouth open. She reached out and gently rubbed the baby's swaddling clothes. Then, she untied the apron around the baby's neck and gently pressed it twice. Finally, the baby's crying gradually stopped. Yuan Xiong widened her eyes in anger and screamed with a pale face. Crown Princess, what are you doing? Slap him. The old nanny at the side immediately rolled up her sleeves, took 2 steps forward, and slapped Yuan Xiong's white and tender little face. Yuan Xiong's body tilted and she fell to the ground. She felt a burning pain on her cheek and felt that the left side of her face was swollen. Her eyes narrowed slightly, and she angrily looked up in the direction of Arbor. She seemed to be very confused as to why she was suddenly slapped. Saishio, tell her the reason, Arbor said coldly. Saishio took a step forward and said sternly, You don't know the rules. You barged in without being summoned by the crown princess. This is the first crime. You were possessed by a drama queen and showed off in front of the crown princess. This is the second crime. Chapter 3281. You're just a mistress of the Mu family. Isn't it good for you to live a simple life? Why do you have to make trouble in front of the crown princess? You even dragged your own child into this mess. The child is still so young. Do you want her to learn your cheap ways from now on and become a despicable person like you when she grows up? Yuan Xiong widened her eyes in shock. She didn't expect that the little palace maid beside the crown princess would dare to reprimand her like this. You. She was so angry that her whole body trembled. Arbor didn't bother to look at her and directly carried the child into the room. After checking the child's body, he took out a mild antipyretic medicine and carefully poured it into the child's mouth. When Mo Lien stepped into the courtyard, he saw a woman with a head full of pearls and jade ornaments. Her hair was disheveled, and she was forced to kneel in the courtyard. He frowned and walked over as if he didn't see anything. As soon as he pushed open the door, he saw his little fellow bending over with her back to him and pouring medicine into the mouth of a baby. Mo Yin slipped to his wife's side like a gust of wind and glanced at the baby who was placed on a fluffy blanket. Is the fever gone? Yes. Arbor had already finished feeding the baby. He put down the medicine bottle and turned to look at him. You sent the state preceptor away? Mo Yin pursed his lips and nodded. The state preceptor suddenly came to visit the Mu family, so the old master called him over. He didn't know why that old evildoer came to the Mu family. He said a lot, and in the end, he even took the old master's birthday banquet invitation card. This made the crown prince very suspicious. Did the state preceptor come here today for no reason to personally ask the old master for an invitation card? Arbor tidied up the baby's swaddling clothes and picked her up. At this time, the child was already asleep. The abnormal blush on her small face gradually faded. At this time, there was a little pink and tender color on her porcelain white face. Her breathing was also much more normal than before. The young crown Prince Consort's gaze inexplicably softened a little. Prince Mo's eyes lit up as he watched from the side. His wife liked children. This was a good sign. In the future, perhaps they could cough, have a few more babies to make their wives happy. Your Highness, Your Highness. When Yuan Xiong saw Prince Mo walking out of the room with the little crown princess, she couldn't help but struggle for a moment, desperately trying to move forward on her knees. The old woman who was pressing down on Yuan Xiong, her shoulder had an angry look in her eyes. She exerted some strength in her hand, causing Yuan Xiong to cry out in pain. Your Highness, please uphold justice. The crown princess suddenly beat me up without saying anything and stole my child. The old woman who was pressing her down was even more ruthless. Yuan Xiong cried out in pain. Teach her the rules, and Mo Lin coldly said, then walked out of the door with the little crown princess. They hadn't walked far when they heard the sound of slapping in the face, accompanied by the old woman's angry rebuke. You're just a lowly servant outside. How dare you call yourself me in front of the crown princess? This Mu family is indeed uneducated. It seemed that Yuan Xiong had received the education she deserved. Where are we going, Jojo? Prince Mo asked. To the old master's north courtyard. Arbor looked down at Mu Roshue, who was sleeping soundly in his arms. It's better to leave this child with the old madam. Chapter 3282. When Arbor arrived, Matriarch Mu was just about to have dinner. Hearing that her granddaughter and her husband had arrived, she was overjoyed and hurriedly ordered the servants to bring more chopsticks, pulling them to eat together. Who is this child? Arbor glanced at Kai Xiao, who was behind him. Prince Mo was secretly amused, knowing that this little fellow was too lazy to explain. Kai Xiao hurriedly stepped forward and recounted what happened in Yulan Court. Matriarch Mu's face darkened, and she felt a little depressed. She had just invited this little ancestor back home to stay for a while. How did that ignorant mistress come to her courtyard to cause a ruckus? She suddenly had some doubts about Mu Qingya's housekeeping skills. Previously, when she saw Mu Qingya managing the entire Mu family, she was quite organized and didn't have so many messy matters. Why did it feel like her abilities had declined a lot recently? Or was it that the mistress, Yuan Xiong, was too good at causing trouble by jumping up and down in the eldest branch? Grandmother, you've just recovered from serious illness, so you still need to recuperate. But that Yuan Xiong, you've seen her character. Arbor couldn't help but explain. Her brain isn't good, and her methods are even more vulgar. With her current momentum of being favored by Mu Jingfeng, her child's fever is so high. How could there be no doctor to treat her child? She just has to pretend in front of me. Does she think everyone is a fool like her? Matriarch Mu sighed. Naturally, she was cursing Yuan Xiong in her heart. Everyone thought that the little crown princess was young and inexperienced, but she was smart and didn't know anything. Her eyes were as clear as fire. I don't care about the grudges between her and the eldest branch's wife. Today, she came to my court with her child, which means she doesn't know proper etiquette. This crown princess taught her a fierce lesson. It's also good for her to remember in the future that she shouldn't cause trouble for me and Qian when she has nothing better to do. Since she pretended in front of me, I'll give her an unforgettable lesson." Matriarch Mu nodded, but she didn't know whether to laugh or cry in her heart. The young crown prince consort's stoic face was taut, but she was truly swift and decisive when it came to doing and speaking, not giving the slightest bit of face to others. "I understand." Matriarch Mu patted the back of Qiao Mu's hand with a smile. She then turned to the nanny beside her, who had her head bowed, and said, "Bring the child to my room. I'll raise her here for a period of time." "Sorry to trouble you, grandmother. How is it troublesome?" The old madam smiled and said, "Little 8 is also my granddaughter. Letting her stay by Yuan Xiong, Er's side is harming her." Speaking of this, old Madame Fu felt a little angry in her heart. The reason why Yuan Xiong dared to do this was definitely because of Mu Jingfeng's protection. It was really enough. Jingfeng, this child, looked good in the past, but in recent years, he had become worse and worse. Since he had found Qinya to be his second wife, he had also created a mistress to humiliate her. If it was any other madam, they would not be happy. Moreover, this child was actually raised by an outsider. It was truly unruly to the extreme. Arbor said, "Grandmother, when you were cultivating, you were too eager to advance, which led to a bit of qi deviation. If grandmother trusts me, take the medicinal cuisine I prescribed for her for half a year. She should be almost fully recovered." Matriarch Mu's eyes suddenly lit up when she heard this. There were some problems with her meridians that even an old physician might not be able to see, but her granddaughter was able to point it out. Chapter 3283. Jojo, do you really have a way to cure grandmother's chronic illness? Old Madame Mu hurriedly asked, "Will eating medicinal cuisine work?" Arbor nodded. "Grandmother, do you want to try?" Yes, of course. Eating medicinal cuisine is such a simple thing, so why not try it?" Old Madame Mu nodded with a grin. "Besides, if my granddaughter says there's a way, then there's definitely a way." Arbor nodded. The young couple accompanied Old Madame Mu for dinner. Today, Old Madame Mu had a great appetite and ate a lot. The dinner table was also filled with laughter and laughter. Although Sir Jojo was expressionless the entire time, for some reason, Old Madame Mu felt that the little fellow's cold face was inexplicably cute. Old Master, what's wrong?" The voice of a nanny who was guarding the door suddenly sounded. Then, the nanny seemed to have been pushed to the side and bumped into something, causing her to cry out in pain. The door to the room was forcefully pushed open. Mu Jingfeng stood at the door, fuming. He strode in and bowed to Old Madame Mu. "Mother." He then turned to glare at Arbor. "Where's the child?" "You evil creature, you've only been back for less than half a day, yet you're already running amok." Old Madame Mu slammed the table in anger. "What are you doing?" Barging in and shouting. "Do you still have His Highness the Crown Prince in your eyes?" When Mu Jingfeng found his beloved concubine in Yulon Court and saw that her cheeks were red and swollen from being slapped, his mind went blank. Then, he heard Yuan Xiong complained tearfully that the crown princess had snatched her child and indiscriminately hit her. Mu Jingfeng was even angrier when he heard this. This evil creature, did she want to anger her father to death the moment she returned? Now that he heard Old Madame Mu's reprimand, he could not help but inwardly quiver. He quickly turned to look at M.O. Lien, who was sitting at the table with an unusually cold and furious expression. Seeing Prince Mo's expression that was about to explode, Mu Jingfeng's heart thumped. However, he couldn't help but clench his fists and say, "Mother, I'm here to pick up little 8. Xiong is very worried about her daughter. The crown princess fooled around and brought little 8 to you. Xiao Ba will stay here with me for a period of time." Matriarch Mu calmly interrupted Mu Jingfeng. The moment he said this, not only did Yuan Xiong's expression change, even Mu Jingfeng could not help but reveal a look of surprise. "Old madam!" Yuan Xiong cried out. The old madam shot her a cold glance. "I've already made up my mind. Don't say anything else. How is little 8 going to live her life in the future if she follows such an unpresentable person like you. Yuan Xiong's eyes widened in surprise. Mu Jingfeng suppressed the anger in his heart and shouted at Arbor, "Are you happy now? You're causing trouble the moment you come back." "Shut up." Yin slammed the table and stood up. Her cold eyes turned to Mu Jingfeng. "Mu Jingfeng, try scolding my wife again. It was my idea to raise little 8 by my side," Matriarch Mu coldly said. Matriarch Mu said coldly and glanced at Mu Jingfeng. "If you have an opinion, tell it to your father." Arbor curtsied. "Grandmother, I'll take my leave first." She felt like her breathing was about to stop if she stayed with that scum for a second longer. Arbor pulled Yin out of the door and came face to face with Mu Qingya, who had hurried over. Arbor looked meaningfully at Mu Qingya. "Great, Madam Mu, you've got some tricks." Chapter 3284. Mu Qingya was startled. Then, she calmly took half a step back and bowed to Prince Imo and Arbor. "Greetings, Crown Prince and Crown Princess." Xiao Mu's gaze swept over her coldly before she nodded and said, "This Crown Prince Consort knows that you have the intention to scheme against that outside. Do you know why I'm so considerately cooperating with you?" Arbor slowly walked up to Mu Qingya, whose head was slightly lowered. "Because in my opinion, these tricks of yours, both inside and outside the house, are very stupid. I can cooperate with you this time to suppress that mistress. Next time, it can also be your turn." Arbor stretched out his hand. Mu Qingya subconsciously took a step back and shrunk her shoulders. Arbor's small hand paused in midair for a while before gently falling down and helping Mu Qingya smooth the hair that was floating in front of her eyes to the back of her head. "There's no trick that can escape my eyes." Arbor stretched out 2 fingers and gestured with his eyes. He said coldly, "Be a good first madam and don't provoke me." "Okay. I know you're a smart person." She gently stroked Mu Qingya's shoulder twice and suddenly smiled. The smile in her eyes was deep and cold, as if a cold light had passed through the cold moon. "If you want to hide it, then hide it deeper. Don't let me find out anything." She took a deep look at Mu Qingya, then turned around and walked slowly to Yin, who was smiling faintly, and took his hand. It wasn't until the 2 figures disappeared from the end of the corridor that Song Lu, who had been standing stiffly with her head lowered, couldn't help but fall to the ground. Wet with cold sweat, Nanny Chio couldn't help scolding in a low voice, "Hurry up and get up. What are you doing?" Mu Qingya took a deep breath. Her straightened back was already drenched in cold sweat at some point. The little girl's eyes were like a venomous snake from hell. When she stared at him, it made his heart darken. He couldn't see the slightest bit of light. It was a little scary. Inside Yulon Court, Arbor sat on the brocade couch. With a wave of his small hand, a circle of spiritual energy appeared in front of him. The demonic eye that was attached to Mu Qingya's shoulder came into play and clearly reflected their current situation. After Mu Qingya paid her respects to the old madam, she pacified the irritable Mu Jingfeng before returning to her own gilded garden. Along the way, Song Lu naturally talked about the little crown princess's vile behavior. Mu Qingya couldn't help but scold her when she saw that her words were getting out of hand. Nanny Chio hurriedly asked her to calm down. After the master and servants returned to the courtyard, Mu Qingya sat down by the window, looking exhausted. She supported her chin with one hand and stared blankly outside the window for a long time. Xiao Mu creased her brows and abruptly cast a sidelong glance, her vigilant gaze sweeping over her surroundings. Yin just happened to step through the door. Seeing her wide, open eyes and her head turning back and forth as if she was looking at something, she couldn't help but smile and step forward to hug her. "Looking at your husband?" "No," Sir Jojo said expressionlessly. "Chirp." Yin lowered his head and pecked her on the lips. "Punishment for lying." Lord Jojo absent-mindedly looked around and subconsciously reached out to cover his thin lips that were close to hers. Chapter 3285. "I feel like someone's watching us," Arbor said with a puzzled expression, her little hand falling loosely on his lips. "Little hoodwinker." Prince Imo lowered his head and continued to kiss her. "Really? Sir Jojo looked into his eyes with a serious expression. Mo Yin was slightly taken aback. Only then did he realize that this little guy wasn't joking with him. So he collected his thoughts and looked around. There's no divine perception fluctuation. Mo Yin blinked. Sir Jojo jumped off the couch and walked barefoot to the window. He stuck his head out to take a look, then retracted his gaze in puzzlement. There was a prickly feeling in his back, and he didn't know what was going on. Mo Yin held his wifey's hand and returned to the brocade divan to sit down. He carried her onto his lap and wrapped his arms around her small waist. Chow Chow, is it because you feel uncomfortable all over in the Mu family? It's fine. If you don't like it, we can leave tomorrow. Sir Jojo also felt that he might be a little too sensitive. He turned his head to glance at him and said, "Humph. If I leave right after coming, wouldn't I be telling everyone that I'm afraid of Mu Jingfeng?" She drew the light and shadow circled by the demonic eye closer to her eyes and frowned at Mu Qingya and the others. No matter how she looked at it, Mu Qingya looked like a docile and amiable woman. She really couldn't find any flaws in her. Could it be that she was really overthinking it? Go and close the doors and windows. Mu Qingya gave Nanny Chio a look. The latter immediately understood and hurriedly closed all the doors and windows before returning to Mu Qingya's side. Mu Qingya stood up. Seeing that Song Lu wanted to follow her, she impatiently brushed her sleeve and pushed her away. "Song Lu, if you criticize Second Miss in front of me again in the future, you can leave on your own. I can't control you anymore. In the future, I'll have your new master take care of you." The servant turned pale with fright. She hurriedly knelt down and said with tears streaming down her face, "First, madam, I won't dare not casually criticize the crown princess again. Remember what you said today," Mu Qingya said coldly. "Wait outside." "Yes." Song Lu wiped her tears and pitifully climbed up from the ground. She then retreated to the door and closed it again. "This girl is too unruly." Mu Qingya sighed. With First Madam taking care of her, she can always become more mature. Nanny Chio smiled and held Mu Qingya's arm. Mu Qingya smiled faintly and patted Nanny Chio's hand before leading her behind screen. The two of them walked to a row of wooden cabinets at the back and looked at each other. Mu Qingya stretched out her hand and twisted open a jade wall beside her. The wooden cabinet on the left moved backward, making a small path that only allowed one person to pass through. Mu Qingya and Nanny Chio walked in one after another. Unexpectedly, there was a small room behind the wooden cabinet. There was only a small birch table in the small room. It was more than a meter long and had two curved corners. In the middle of the table was something covered with a piece of black cloth. Mu Qingya stared blankly at the thing on the table. When she turned her head to the side, a ruthless glint flashed across her eyes. At that moment, Nanny Chio had already quietly walked behind her. She was holding a large black lacquered wooden box in her arms, a cold glint flashing in her eyes. She put the box on the ground and opened the lid. Arbor's pupils contracted. Chapter 3286. Inside the lacquered wooden box was a naked wooden figurine. It had a golden ring on its head and silver needles pierced into all the major acupuncture points on its body. It was so bright that it made people dizzy. Mo Yin curled her lips. "I didn't expect Madame Mu to play this trick." The two took a closer look and saw a string of birth characters engraved on the figurine's chest. Arbor thought for a moment and saw that it wasn't her mother's birth characters, nor was it her own. A trace of doubt appeared in her eyes. Nanny Chio handed a small hammer to Mu Qingya with a murderous look on her face. Mu Qingya punched the wooden figurine and muttered something under her breath. "What is she saying?" Arbor narrowed her eyes. Mu Qingya was muttering in the image. Her voice was so soft that she couldn't hear it clearly. However, looking at her ferocious face, it seemed that the little person under her was her mortal enemy. Mu Qingya kept hitting the figurine with the hammer in her hand. Every time she hit it, fine beads of sweat appeared on her forehead. When she hit it for the 9th time, she seemed to be suffering from the backlash of the yin shang technique. A trace of blood seeped out of the corner of her lips. "Madam, Nanny Chio hurriedly reached out to support her. It's been nearly 10 days. That long guy will get the retribution he deserves in 3 days. I know Madam is eager to take revenge, but we can't be too hasty. I've waited long enough. Mu Qingya's eyes seemed to be flickering with light. She leaned against Nanny Chio and slowly stood up. She coughed a few times and wiped the blood from her lips. Long Shoshin deserves to die. Long Shoshin? Arbor couldn't help but be taken aback. Wasn't Long Shoshin the name of the head of the Long family branch in Longyan City? Arbor had a big conflict with Long Shoshin's family at the palace banquet. After that, she had investigated the Long family quite a bit. Why did Mu Qingya say that Long Shoshin was trustworthy? Madam, this kind of thing can't be rushed. You're using the body of a mortal to do this yin sheng technique. Now the backlash is not small. If you don't pay attention in time, Mu Qingya raised her hand to stop Nanny Chio. I've waited for so long. Finally, I found a chance to take revenge. This time, I have to seize it no matter what. Mu Qingya took a deep breath and turned to look at Nanny Chio. Nanny, you'll help me, right? You will definitely help me. Yes, yes. Nanny Chio nodded repeatedly. If this little technique of mine can help Madam and let Madam untie the knot in her heart, then I will definitely help Madam without hesitation. Mu Qingya's eyes wandered as she stared at the small wooden table in front of her. Nanny Chio took a few steps forward and lifted the black cloth covering the object. A memorial tablet appeared in front of everyone, with the words Long Chuyun engraved on it. Fresh melons and fruits were placed in front of the memorial tablet. A small birch table was wiped clean and spotless. Mu Qingya quickly walked forward. With Nanny Chio's help, she knelt on the green futon in front of the birch table. Sister, if your spirit is in heaven, please bless me. This time, I must get rid of that traitor Long Shoshin. I'm not afraid of any hardships. I'm just worried that Long Shoshin will continue to get away with it. Sister. Mu Qingya took a few steps forward on her knees and looked at Long Chuyun's memorial tablet with gentle eyes. Don't worry. I will definitely protect Jojo for you. Chapter 3287. Madam, should we go and explain to Second Miss? No, don't try to explain. Mu Qingya quickly grabbed Nanny Chio's hand and shook her head. Jojo has been living in the lower star sector since she was a child, so it's understandable that she's so defensive. Let's not say anything. I believe that time will reveal a person's heart. One day she'll know. Go and pack up. We'll come back tomorrow. Madam, you've already suffered backlash. Why don't you stop for a day? No. Mu Qingya interrupted Nanny Chio sternly. It wasn't easy for me to get a death warrior planted in Long Mansion to steal that old thief's birth characters and so the curse ruin into his purse. I've done so much. I can't let all my efforts go to waste. So what if he has cultivation? He's still going to fall into our hands, Mu Qingya said coldly. There's only 3 days left. I can make him die without anyone knowing. At that time, others will only think that he was obsessed with cultivation and died from chi deviation. They won't suspect us at all. In short, Long Shoshin must die. I've tolerated him for long enough. Nanny Chio nodded. Yes, I'll do my best to help Madam. Thank you, Nanny Chio. Mu Qingya looked back at her and took a deep breath. I believe that if Sister's spirit is in heaven, she'll bless us with success. The two of them left the secret room, moved the wooden cabinet to its original position, and opened the door. Just as senior servant Chio called out, Song Lu, she saw a reckless little girl running over from not far away in the corridor. She tripped slightly and, with a splash, a basin of cold water was splashed all over. Nanny Chio's eyes sharpened. She raised her hand and waved her sleeve to brush away the water that was coming straight at her. But no matter how fast she moved, a portion of the water still splashed onto Madame Mu beside her. You're courting death. Nanny Chio scolded angrily. In front of Arbor, the scene in the spirit energy circle formed by the demonic I was gradually fading. Since the demonic pupil was soaked in water, the effects were naturally much worse. Arbor retracted his gaze and looked at Mo Lien blankly. Is Mu Qingya really my mother's good friend? Could it be that I really misunderstood her? Xiao Mu creased her small brows in bewilderment. Emolien couldn't help but laugh and hold her little hand. All right, you're not allowed to worry about other people's matters. How about this? Tomorrow I'll send someone to the Long family to ask around. Won't we know if Long Shoshin has been cursed by someone? Okay, Lien's Jojo, let's go to sleep now. I'm so sleepy. Emolien carried his little wife and got up and walked toward the bed. Sir Jojo looked at him expressionlessly. After a while, he said, "Make a defensive barrier." Emolien, I feel like there's a pair of eyes staring at us. Emolien turned around with the little fellow in his arms and used his divine perception to carefully check the room. He saw the candlelight flickering slightly. Behind a row of pine and bamboo screens was a large floor-to-ceiling vase decorated with beautiful patterns. Behind it was 100 treasures grid. Where were the eyes? Okay. Everything my little emperor says is right. Emolien casually set up a defensive barrier, then placed his darling on the bed and kissed her gently. Go to sleep. Chapter 3288. Lord Xiao Qiao narrowed her eyes. Her furry little head burrowed into the man's embrace, and said in a small voice, "If I've really wronged her, then I'll apologize to her." Emolien pursed his lips in amusement as he rubbed the little one's head. I know, my family's little emperor is the most considerate. Sir Jojo nodded his little head, stretched out a pair of slender arms, and hooked his waist as he whispered softly, "Lotus, remember to wake me up tomorrow morning, the next morning." Sir Jojo rolled out of bed, blinked his eyes, and looked around. His little face couldn't help but tense up. Where's Jojo's Lotus? Kai Chi, who was carrying toiletries into the room, couldn't help but smile when she heard this. The crown prince went to the palace early in the morning. Sir Jojo's little face tightened unhappily. Didn't I ask him to wake me up? Kai Chi used a lot of strength to maintain the expression on her face. His Highness did wake her up, but the crown princess was in a deep sleep, and no matter how hard he tried, she didn't wake up. Sir Jojo looked at Kai Chi and said expressionlessly, "Do you feel like laughing?" Sai Chi vigorously shook her small head with an N, but still said fearlessly, "The Crown Prince Consort is still holding onto a strand of His Highness the Crown Prince's hair without letting go. In the end, His Highness had no choice but to cut his hair. Look, isn't it still in your hand?" Sir Jojo looked down with an expressionless face. Sure enough, her white and clean little hand was still holding onto a strand of Jojo's lotus hair. Kai Chi said seriously. Before His Highness left, he kept shaking his head and muttering that if this goes on, he thinks he'll become bald sooner or later. The eunuchs and palace maids who were trying hard to keep a straight face couldn't help but let out a snort, and then quickly shut their mouths. The young crown prince consort hopped down from the bed expressionlessly. She casually found a brocade pouch and put Xiao Qiao's Lian's hair inside. She glanced at them from the corner of her eyes and pattered past them. After the little fellow finished washing his hands and rinsing his mouth, he turned to look at Kai Chi and said, "Prepare the carriage. I'm going to Prince Kang's mansion." "Yes." Kai Chi held back her laughter as she turned around and left in a hurry. The little crown princess glanced at the group of junior eunuchs and junior palace maids who had their heads lowered. She walked out with small steps and snorted. "If you want to laugh, then laugh. As soon as Jojo walks out of the room, you can laugh. Why hold it in?" Oomph. The second branch of the Mu family had been bustling since early this morning. After the most outstanding young master of the second branch, Mu Erkshu, came back from the academy, the entire second branch was full of jubilation for several days in a row. They had even rewarded the servants several times. The old master's birthday banquet was getting closer and closer. Each branch was also busy raising funds and spending a lot of money to buy birthday gifts for the old master. Not only that, each branch also sent clever manservants to inquire each other about what gifts other people would give to the old master. The second branch was naturally no exception. Early in the morning, someone sent a message to the second branch's old master, saying that the expensive jade Buddha hand ordered by the fifth branch had arrived. The second branch's madam, Qiushi, pushed open the door to her daughter's room and walked in. At a glance, she saw her daughter who was wearing thin clothes and sitting in front of the dressing mirror. She was combing her hair and staring blankly at the mirror. These days, because her son came back, the house was very lively every day. She didn't pay attention to her daughter's difference. Chapter 3289. Today, she heard from Mama that 7th Miss hadn't left her room for 2 days. She couldn't help but suspect that her daughter was unwell because of the sudden change in weather. "Rosienne, what are you doing? Why are you wearing so little and sitting in front of the mirror in a daze?" Madame Chio frowned and walked to her daughter's side to tug at her. Rosienne returned to her senses and hurriedly stood up. "Mother." Madame Chio poked her forehead. "I thought you were possessed, sitting in front of the dressing table in a daze. What's going on? Tell Mother." "It's nothing." Rosienne pursed her lips and casually used a wooden comb to comb through her hair. Madame Chio saw her bashful expression and her girlish demeanor. She couldn't help but be startled for a moment before smiling. "What is it? You can tell Mother what's on your mind." "No, nothing's on my mind." Rosienne put down the wooden comb and her eyes darted around. She couldn't help but pull her mother to sit down. Twisting her body, she stammered, "Mother, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." Madame Chio couldn't help but laugh. "The entire second branch has been busy preparing for your grandfather's birthday banquet. Mother neglected you and didn't even know that my daughter is a young girl in love and has something on her mind." "Mother, don't make fun of me." Rosienne blushed and shook her mother's hand. She thought for a moment and mustered her courage to ask, "Mother, I want to ask that I heard that His Highness the Crown Prince is only in his early 20s, but his cultivation is very impressive. Is that true?" Madame Chio nodded and then looked at her daughter with a vigilant expression. She sized her up, and her heart sank for no reason. She recalled that her daughter had become reluctant to go out in the past 2 days. To be more precise, it was after returning from New South Garden. It couldn't be the object of her daughter's love was His Highness the Crown Prince, right? Madame Chio's heart instantly felt uneasy, and her gaze was very vigilant as she looked sharply at Rosienne. "Rosienne, tell Mother the truth. Why did you suddenly mention the Crown Prince? Could it be that you fell in love with him after seeing him once at New South Garden?" "Mother, what nonsense are you saying?" Rosienne was so embarrassed that her face turned crimson. She hurriedly covered her face and cried out, No, Mother, don't speak nonsense." Madame Chio looked at her carefully and felt even more uneasy. His daughter had grown up. It was time to consider finding a match for her. In the past, Madame Chio had always thought that her daughter was still young. Besides, people in Shenzhou generally lived long lives, so it was not the time to talk about marriage. But now, it seemed that it was better to settle his daughter's marriage as soon as possible, so that she wouldn't keep thinking about nonsense. Chiosher said seriously, "Rosienne, that day in New South Garden, you saw with your own eyes how His Highness the Crown Prince treated the Crown Princess. Even Miss Chun from the left Prime Minister's family was not able to enter the Crown Prince's eyes. Do you think you could do it? Don't ever do something you're not confident in. Otherwise, you'll waste time and hurt yourself." Chiosher said coldly. "Don't think that just because the Crown Prince listens to the Crown Princess wholeheartedly and is extremely good to her, that if you were in her place, perhaps you could also receive the Crown Prince's favor. You're not the Crown Princess. You'll never be her. It's extremely important to recognize your own status." Rosienne's heart skipped a beat. She widened her eyes at her mother and couldn't help but tear up. Chapter 3290. Madame Chio's words to her could be said to be harsh. She had never seen her mother with such a stern face. How could she say this to her? "Mother is saying this for your own good." Madame Chio sighed. The young lady's first awakening of love was not sensible, and her thoughts were too simple. She only saw the Crown Prince's gentleness and hated that she couldn't replace the Crown Princess. However, she didn't know that the Crown Prince's gentleness was all because of the little Crown Princess. If it were her, that man might not even cast a cold glance at her from the corner of his eyes. Don't indulge in wild fantasies. Beautiful dreams definitely won't come true. You saw His Highness the Crown Prince treating the Crown Princess gently and doting on her like a pearl or a treasure. That's because the crown princess is beautiful enough to make one's heart ache. If it were you, His Highness the Crown Prince wouldn't even look at you. Madame Cho coldly threw down these words and stood up to walk out. Tidy up yourself and don't think about anything else in the future. Your grandfather's birthday banquet is only a few days away. Come out and help. Seeing Madame Cho walk out without looking back, Mu Ruian was so angry that she slapped a head ornament on the dressing table, and it fell to the ground. Her personal maidservant, who had quickly walked in, was so scared that her face turned pale. She hurriedly stepped forward and looked at the broken head ornament on the ground in shock. "Young miss, why did you break the head ornament? This is your favorite one." At this moment, Mu Roshian's heart was bleeding. How could she have known that she would break her beloved jewelry in a fit of anger? While her heart was bleeding, she also felt grief and indignation. Being scolded by her mother like this, she felt ashamed and unconvinced at the same time. Why did her mother deny all the feelings she contributed when she first awakened of love? It was really laughable. Just because she and her father were married into a family, she didn't allow her daughter to awaken a love? Was there any mother who would say that about her own daughter? Why did she say that she was inferior to the crown princess? Empty words without any comparison. Since they had never crossed swords, how could she know that she was inferior? Mu Roshian's slender fingers twisted together as she stood up and walked out quickly. Her personal maidservant hurriedly called out to her, "Little mistress, please slow down. You haven't changed your clothes yet." On the other side, Arbor's carriage had already arrived at the gate of Prince Kang's mansion. She had not sent a greeting card to Wang Fei. Thinking that she had been back for 2 days and had not come to visit Imperial Aunt, she could not help but come in a hurry. Imperial Aunt had taken a warm jade pill for a long time. Today, she came over to check her pulse and see if she could use acupuncture. Who would have thought that when she arrived at the door, she would coincidentally see Princess Consort Kong coming out, surrounded by people in front and behind, looking like she was about to go out. The little fellow had just come down from the carriage and met Princess Consort Kong, who had just come out of the door. Both of them were stunned. Princess Consort Kang's eyes instantly lit up, and she quickly walked forward with a big smile. She laughed and said, I was wondering why there was a magpie chirping outside my door so early in the morning. So it's because our family's JoJo is coming. Ha ha, I was just about to go to the Eastern Palace to look for you. I didn't expect you to come over." Princess Consort Kong was extremely happy. She went forward and hooked her arm around Arbor's small arm, smiling intimately as she said, "Quick, let Imperial Aunt take a look. She's gotten thinner after going to the academy." Arbor could not help but be speechless. "No, how has she gotten thinner? I heard that your Imperial Academy's principal is quite stingy. His usual meals are also not that great." Chapter 3291. Sir Jojo's eyes lit up. "Who did you hear that from?" "It's true. Dean Yun was a miser and greedy person. Even a school uniform could be sold at a sky-high price. Who else could I have heard it from? I just heard some gossip from your Imperial uncle." Imperial uncle is so insightful. Arbor nodded her little head in all seriousness. Lu Lanyun couldn't help but burst into laughter when she saw this. "Let's go in and chat with Imperial Aunt. I haven't seen you in a long time. You have to stay here tonight and listen to Imperial Aunt." The young crown princess blinked. She had just raised a small hand when Princess Consort Kong pulled it down. "I'll find someone to inform the crown prince later. I'm borrowing his wife for a night. He can't be so stingy as to refuse, right?" As she said this, she couldn't help but burst into laughter first. The young crown princess tilted her head in thought, then nodded and said, "All right, then I'll have to trouble Imperial Aunt." "Io, what trouble is there? Imperial Aunt can't ask for more," Princess Consort Kong said with a wide grin. "Imperial Aunt, I'll take your pulse in a bit. Yesterday, the old prince told Lien that all the materials on the list of medicinal ingredients have been found. Let's take a look in a bit. If your body's condition permits, we can begin the acupuncture treatment." Okay. Lu Lanyun nodded repeatedly and said with a chuckle, "There's no rush. Let's have a good chat first." "Older sister, The two of them were intimately holding hands as they walked into the estate when they heard a soft and weak call from behind them. Arbor clearly felt Princess Consort Kang's arm around her stiffen slightly, and her body involuntarily tensed up. She couldn't help but frown. She turned around with Princess Consort Kang to look at a delicate woman who was walking down from a carriage. She was dressed in white silk with a small white flower in her hair. This woman was like a willow branch swaying in the wind. Her palm-sized face was filled with tears. Before she spoke, tears had already streamed down her face. Arbor only felt Princess Consort Kang's body tense up even more. She pursed her lips and didn't say a word. Elder sister. That weak and helpless woman looked pitifully at Princess Consort Kang. She said softly, "Sorry to disturb you. It's just that elder sister knows about my current situation. After my late husband passed away, I was chased out by his whole family. I really had nowhere to go, so I could only come and look for my sister." Lu Lanyan's face looked terrible. Arbor couldn't help but look at the delicate woman curiously. This woman looked delicate and weak, as if she would be blown away by a gust of wind. Tears flowed down her cheeks before she spoke. Standing at the entrance of Prince Kang's Fu, she looked so pitiful that the passers-by could not help but cast their gazes on her. Those who didn't know better would think that Princess Kang had bullied this woman and made her cry nonstop at the entrance of Prince Kang's mansion. The head maidservant of the Wang Fei, Dan Ling, stepped forward with a cold smile and stood in front of the weak woman. She said in a neutral tone, "Third young lady, third young master suddenly passed away. Our Wang Fei has already sent people to express her condolences. She also sent consolation money and arranged for people to send third young lady back to Lu family." Why did third young lady come to Prince Kang's Fu instead of returning to Lu family? Your maternal family is Lu family, not our Prince Kang's Fu. Danling couldn't help but roll her eyes. The old madam of Lu family was truly a weirdo. Or rather, she was someone whose mind was already biased to the heavens. She clearly knew that this younger daughter's actions were wrong, but she still tacitly allowed her to come to Prince Kang's Fu to look for her Wang Fei. She glorified it by saying that her late husband had passed away and that she had no relatives to rely on to seek shelter from her older sister. Chapter 3292. Fuck, don't you have a maternal family? Your biological mother, old Madame Lu, isn't dead yet. Do you need to seek refuge with older sister? Her intentions are truly obvious. Danling couldn't help but roll her eyes. She then gave a look to the two young maidservants behind her before walking up to tug at the delicate woman. "Third young miss, the wind is strong here. Don't get a headache from the wind again. This servant will have someone send you back." Older sister. The delicate woman looked at Princess Consort Kang with tears in her eyes, looking helpless and melancholic. It was as if Princess Consort Kang would commit an unpardonable crime if she didn't take her in. Princess Consort Kang was utterly disgusted. She immediately turned her head away and said coldly, "Send third young miss back." "Woo-woo, older sister." The delicate woman wiped her tears with a handkerchief and cried out mournfully, "Older sister, I know you hate me, but Lan Xin has no other choice. That's why I came to find you. If it weren't for the fact that my husband's family couldn't tolerate a weak woman like me, why would I come to beg for older sister's mercy?" Princess Consort Kang turned to glare at her. "I had someone send you to the Lu estate, but you came to my place to cry and make a fuss? Others might think that the Lu estate couldn't tolerate you either." "Aunt, what are you talking about?" A girl in her early 20s popped out from the delicate woman's side. She stomped her feet and said indignantly, "It was maternal grandmother who sent us here to find Aunt. It's not like we had to come here to look for trouble." Princess Consort Kang was instantly angered into laughter. She looked coldly at the mother and daughter and said, "Since you've lost your husband, it's fine if you go back to your maternal home. But you came to me, your older sister. Do you want to do something like 20 years ago and stir up trouble again?" Princess Consort Kang didn't expect that Lu Lanxin still hadn't completely given up on the old prince. She was both amused and angry. She was truly blessed. That's why he ended up with such a top-grade mother and sister. 20 years ago, Lu Lanxin had caused a farce. On the day of her wedding, Lu Lanxin brought her a bowl of ginseng soup the next night. Fortunately, she had always been on guard against this little sister. She didn't dare to drink it and pretended to faint. In the end, her good sister was so naive that she thought of the play of changing the bride before the bridal sedan chair. She planned to make her faint and replace her, happily going to the prince's mansion to be the mistress of the house. The farce of the Lu family was laughed at for 3 whole years. Every time Princess Consort Kong thought about it, she couldn't help but have a headache. Lu Lanxin looked at Princess Consort Kong with a pale face. She trembled all over like a little white flower shivering in the wind. She cried pitifully, "Sister, what are you saying? It's been 20 years. Why are you still brooding over it? I really didn't expect Big Sister to be such a person." Lu Lanxin wiped her tears and said, "There are some things that I can't say here. Why don't we go into the mansion first?" Princess Consort Kong looked coldly at the little white flower in front of her. "I, Lu Lanyun, am an upright person. There's nothing to hide. If you have anything to say it here. Enter the mansion in your dreams. Don't even think about entering the mansion in this lifetime." Seeing her resolute attitude, a trace of coldness flashed through Lu Lanxin's eyes. Then she sobbed and said intermittently, "This is also Mother's intention. Big Sister has been childless for so many years. We can't let the old prince die without an heir." She sobbed and said pitifully, "I'm sorry." Chapter 3293. Although I've adopted Louis Rand for my sister-in-law, I'm still raising him. Lu Lanxin sniffed and pretended to wipe her tears with a handkerchief. She stole a glance at Lu Lanyan. She continued, "But there's no heir to the prince's mansion. Although I've had a hard life, I'm still a woman with a son and a daughter. If you want to adopt our Zongbao, it's not impossible." Lu Lanyan was so angry that she laughed. It seemed that the mother and children had already planned this out. They wanted to bring their families into the prince's mansion. They wanted to start with the prince's stepsons and stepdaughters, and then the family of 3 would become the new masters of the prince's mansion, right? She did not have a son, but why did she have to adopt Huang Yu Bao, a good-for-nothing who was almost 20 years old and had a bad reputation? She must have eaten her fill and had nothing else to do. Would it not be better for her to choose a baby from any of the Mo family's royal relatives to raise? She wanted to choose someone with a different surname, and such an unreliable playboy at that. He was already so old. Could he still be of one mind with her in the future? It was so funny. Princess Consort Kong sneered. Before she could speak, the little crown princess frowned and said, "What nonsense are you talking about? People in China generally live long lives. What's wrong with imperial aunt living for a few hundred years? Just because she doesn't have children now doesn't mean she won't have children in the future. As long as imperial aunt takes care of her body, she can have as many children as she wants in less than 2 years. Why should she adopt your child? Are you kidding me?" Lu Lanxin heard the crisp voice and could not help but be stunned. Then she cast a displeased glance at Arbor. Huang Yu Bao, who was casually standing beside his mother and sister and playing with the horsewhip in his hand, looked over when he heard the voice. With one look, his eyes widened in shock, and the horsewhip in his hand fell to the ground with a clatter. On the other hand, Princess Consort Kong couldn't resist becoming slightly agitated. She pulled over Qiao Mu's small hand while secretly restraining her emotions. She asked softly, Qiao, is this what you said true?" Of course it's true. In the past, Wang Fei's body was too cold to conceive. Now that she had taken a warm jade pill, her body should have improved a lot. In the future, I will perform acupuncture for another half a year. Wang Fei's body will only get better and better. When I said 2 years, I was talking about a long time. If nothing goes wrong, she should be able to conceive in a year or so. This time, Lu Lanyan was truly moved. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Good child, I believe in you." Hearing this, Lu Lanxin felt very uncomfortable. She sneered at the princess consort and said, "Sister, don't be so naive. Don't trust a child too much. Look at her age. For her to be able to say such exaggerated words, it must be mostly boasting. Lu Lanxin pursed her lips and pretended to wipe her tears with a handkerchief. Don't you know what your body looked like since you were young? If that cold disease was so easy to cure, it would have been cured decades ago. As soon as I heard it, I knew that this child was lying. How could you believe that? She's just a child. Is she going to help you nurse your body back to health? Can she nurse you back to health that you've had for decades? Haha, that's the biggest joke in the world. Only someone as naive as you would believe it. The princess Consort sneered. I believe in JoJo's medical skills. If she says she can, then she can. Chapter 3294. Lu Lanxin sobbed and said with a pitiful look, Sister, please don't be so willful anymore. Haven't you been willful enough in the past few decades? Do you really want the Prince Mansion to have no descendants because of you? The princess's face suddenly changed, and she glared angrily at the blabbermouth woman in front of her. I'm doing and saying these things for your own good. If you were my sister, I wouldn't be bothered to say these intimate words to you. Sister, although the old prince is good to you, you can't take this for granted. Which man in the world doesn't care about children? You haven't had a child for many years. Although the old prince doesn't say it, I don't believe he doesn't have any thoughts about it. If you adopt our Yu Bao, you'll have a son in the future, won't you? In the future, you'll be able to hold your head up high in front of those royal relatives. They won't be so thick-skinned as to force you to take in those children who are far away from you, right? The princess sneered, so I should be grateful to you as my sister. Lu Lanxin wiped her tears. We don't need to be so polite between us. I'm just thinking that you and I are sisters. We're related by blood. If I don't help you, then no one else in this world can. Sir Jojo listened on the side, and he was almost disgusted by the woman in front of him. Why did this woman have to rush the princess to adopt her son who was already so old? He had already told her that the princess would have her own children in the future, but she didn't seem to understand what others were saying. She just kept nagging as if she knew everything. So annoying. Lu Lanxin, you and I know what you're planning. You don't have to pretend to cry here. The princess sneered, Go back to your Lu family. Don't tell me now that I know Lu Feng and I can have our own children. Even if we can't, we won't adopt your Huang Yu Bao. Give up. Sister. Lu Lanxin twisted the handkerchief in her hand and took 2 steps forward. How can you say that, sister? I'm doing this for you. Do you think I'm doing this for myself? It's you who doesn't have a son, not me. Seeing that we're sisters, I agreed to entrust Yu Bao to you. What are you waiting for? How could he let this blabbermouth woman cry and kick up a fuss in front of the Prince Yu's mansion? Hit him. Arbor suddenly raised his small arm. The servants of the prince's mansion on both sides immediately rushed forward like a swarm of bees, as if they were wooden men who had been triggered by a mechanism. Oh my God, I've long found this little widow an eyesore. Now that I've received the crown princess order, how could I not be overjoyed? Like a swarm of bees, the servants all rushed forward. In a flurry, they raised their sticks and shovels and smashed them on the heads of the mother and children. Bang, 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 bang. Chaos ensued, mixed with the little white flowers crying and shrieking. Elder sister, elder sister. What you doing, elder sister? Hey, don't hit me. Sigh. Elder sister. Arbor looked at the scene in front of her expressionlessly. She pulled Princess Kong and turned to walk into the door. Elder sister, tell them to stop. Elder sister. Chapter 3295. The gate of the prince's mansion was immediately closed. Lu Lanxin and her children were beaten up by the servants of the prince's mansion. They ran into the carriage as if they were escaping and ordered someone to drive the carriage away from the prince's mansion as soon as possible. Not long after the carriage left, a wicked servant of Prince Kang's mansion picked up a ball of horse dung and pasted it on the window. Lu Lanxin and her daughter, Huang Yoxia, screamed and cried in each other's arms. Mother, Anne has changed. How did she become so snobbish and treat us like this? Huang Yoxia screamed. Lu Lanxin also cried and said with tears in her eyes, Let's go back and ask your grandmother for justice. I was thinking, how can there be such justice in the world? She doesn't know how to appreciate kindness. We want to help her, but she beat us up and drove us out. The older she gets, the the more disrespectful she becomes. Huang Yoxia smoothed her messy hair and paused when she heard the word old. Mother, don't you think that Aunt seems to have become prettier? Did you notice that she seems to have become 20 years younger? Hey, do you think it's possible that she'll really be able to give birth to a son like that wretched lass said? Bah, she's already so old, and she still wants to give birth to a son. Huh. Lu Lanxin twisted her thin lips harshly. She's destined to die without a son. She shamelessly stole my prince. Now, she can't give birth to a son for decades and still wants to keep that man. If she's the second meanest person in the world, no one is the first. Even though Lu Lanxin said that, she still felt a little jealous. She naturally saw Lu Lanyan's change. Not only did she become slimmer, but she also became prettier and younger. Her delicate skin was comparable to a young girl's. How is this possible? She had to go out and find out what was going on. For the past 2 years, she had been detained at home by that wretched person and had to take care of that wretched tuberculosis ghost. Her news was lagging behind. Now that she finally hoped that guy would rise to the heavens, she had to fight for a good future for herself. Arbor pulled the Princess Consort in and closed the door. He helped the Princess Consort to sit on the stool. Princess Consort, you can't be so nice. To deal with those bitches, you have to be more ruthless than them. The head maidservant Damling's mouth was slightly agape as she hurriedly nodded her head. Your Highness, the Crown Princess is absolutely right. Since conciliation doesn't work, I'll just beat him up a few more times. I'll beat them up every time they come. After the third time, let's see if they still dare to come and cause trouble. But I've always thought that we still have to take into account the reputation of the prince's mansion. How much is face worth? Xiao Mu rolled her eyes and directly sat down next to her. How unpleasant is it to keep feeling stifled in your heart? A person's life can be as short as 100 years or as long as 1,000 years. How much time do you have to squander with those bitches? Just remember my words. If someone makes you uncomfortable, you have to make her uncomfortable 100 times more. That's all. At the side, Damling's little head was about to fall off. Her eyes were bright as she looked at the young Crown Prince Consort. She felt that the Crown Prince Consort's words were too reasonable. She hurriedly went forward to pour 2 cups of water, handing one to Wang Fei and the other to the Crown Prince Consort. She hurriedly slandered, Wang Fei, this servant feels that the Crown Prince Consort's words are too reasonable. Think about it. For so many years, that old lady has been doing unreliable things. How can our prince's mansion maintain its reputation? Chapter 3296. Look at the Crown Princess. After a violent beating, she immediately chased that family of 3 away. That's the right thing to do. You should have done this long ago. If you keep indulging them, they'll take advantage of you instead. Damling said repeatedly. The Princess Consort couldn't help but glance at her in amusement. She looked down at the teacup in her hand and stuffed it into Damling's hand. I think you're the one who needs to drink some water to moisten your throat. Saying so much in one go, how long had she held it in? She wouldn't be happy if she didn't spit it out, would she? Damling pursed her lips and took a step back with the teacup in her hand. Arbor continued, Damling is right. Princess Consort, from the looks of it, that mother and children might come to make a fuss tomorrow. Let me tell you, we have to think of a way to settle this once and for all. Otherwise, you'll be annoyed in the future. Right. Damling nodded furiously like a chick pecking at rice. She hurriedly interrupted. Crown Princess, help our Princess Consort. Give her some ideas and think of a way to keep that family of 3 out forever. This servant is really disgusted every time I see them. If it gets serious, this servant can't even eat. Princess Consort Kong looked at her speechlessly. All right, don't bring up these troublesome matters. Jojo, let's not talk about this. The Princess Consort smiled and took her little hand. Let's go. I'll take you to the back garden for a stroll. Arbor nodded his little head. The Princess Consort suddenly thought of something and turned to look at her. Jojo, I have a presumptuous request. I want to buy another beautifying pill. Imperial Aunt, 1 beautifying pill is enough. It's useless to eat more. Arbor glanced at her and said, Hey, it's not me who wants to buy it. It's that good-for-nothing sister-in-law of mine, Princess Consort. Damling immediately dodged. I said not to meddle in their family's affairs, but you still meddle. The Princess Consort gave her a sidelong glance. She knew Lu Shu's character better than anyone else. He was definitely not evil or treacherous. He was just a little stingy, greedy for small gains, and not magnanimous. For the sake of her elder brother, she wanted to help her if she could. You should have seen her that day. It's the Princess Consort smiled awkwardly. The one who stopped your car at the entrance of Zhenhua Workshop. Oh, now that Princess Kong mentioned it, Arbor remembered. She was the plump woman who kept saying that she was Princess Kang's sister-in-law. My sister-in-law mainly wants to put on some weight. Princess Kong coughed softly and said, I think she has been putting on too much weight recently. When I saw her 2 years ago, she wasn't that fat. Recently, she's like a cabbage that's been injected with catalysts. The longer she grows, the stranger she becomes. Dan Ling, who was following behind the two of them, twitched her mouth when she heard that. Sometimes, the Princess Consort's words were quite sarcastic. Oh, Arbor nodded and turned to look at Wang Fei. That Lu Shu? Ah, that's her. She's so fat. You must remember her. Her sister-in-law's fatness was completely different from her middle-aged fatness back then. She's not fat. Arbor shook her head and said with a serious expression, she's poisoned. Ah. Princess Kong paused in her steps and turned to look at Arbor. She's not fat. You said she's poisoned? Yes. Sir Jojo nodded with a serious expression. I noticed it that day when she jumped into my car. Chapter 3297. Her obesity can't be cured by the beautifying pill alone. She has to be detoxified first. Princess Consort Kong looked astonished. She's just a woman of the inner residence and doesn't have much cultivation, but wanted to make things difficult for her and poisoned her. Xiao Mu shrugged her shoulders. This was not something she could manage. I can give you the detoxification pill. Arbor took out a detoxification pill and handed it to the Princess Consort. Then he said, that day, she said she had money and was willing to pay several times the price for my beautifying pill. The Princess Consort, don't worry, Jojo. I'll just let that stingy sister-in-law of mine bleed. She would only cherish it if she bought it at a high price, right? When night fell, Imol Yin and the old prince returned to the prince's residence together. As soon as he entered the main hall, he saw his little wife sitting upright and still. She was holding a porcelain cup in her hand, and her round eyes were looking in his direction. When she saw him, she pretended not to see him and turned her little head away with a whoosh. Prince Imo was immediately amused. He quickly ran over and reached out to hug his wife. Good evening, Jojo. Your husband hasn't seen you for a day and misses you very much. Humph. The little fellow threw the back of his head at him. Imol Yin smiled and turned her little body around. Jojo, what did your husband do to make you unhappy? You didn't wake me up when you left. Imol Yin curled his lips and bent down to rub against her delicate neck. Heaven and earth can bear witness. The sun and moon can bear witness. At that time, I called Xiao Xiao 7 to 8 times, but Xiao Xiao ignored this hubby. Lady Xiao Xiao looked at him expressionlessly. She moved her small body and raised her hand to push his face. She said hesitantly, My wood spirit energy has an exuberant vitality. It can help you grow your hair. Imol Yin laughed out loud. His little wife, how could she think of anything? Then if I use my wood spiritual energy to grow hair, will your husband's hair continue to grow out of the main hall? That's possible. Arbor thought for a moment, then put down his little hand and patted Prince Mo's head. Forget it then. At the side, the old Wang Yi sneakily glanced at the lovey-dovey couple. He lowered his voice and said to the Wang Fei, Why did you trick the little girl here again? Hey, you didn't see how anxious that little brat was. She didn't even return to the Mu family and directly boarded this prince's carriage, insisting on coming back with me. I didn't invite him. The old prince pursed his lips. Wang Fei giggled and pulled on the old Wang Ye's hand as they walked towards the two. Crown Prince, Wang Yi, go change first. You'll be able to eat dinner in a bit. Go change your clothes. The little fellow reached out and patted his chest with a look of disdain. Prince Imo couldn't help but laugh. He lowered his head and kissed her hard when she wasn't paying attention. Then he winked and said, "Jojo, something interesting happened in court today. I'll tell you about it later." After saying that, he went to his room to change his clothes. Half an hour later, the four of them sat down at a small round table in the dining room to eat. The old Wang Yi roared loudly. "I heard from the steward that Lu Lanxin came to make a fuss today. How did you deal with her? She didn't make things difficult for you, did she?" Princess Consort Kong looked at him speechlessly. "How about you make things difficult for me? She's just a newly bereaved widow. She can't make things difficult for me." "Oomph." The old Wang Yi snorted in annoyance. "Her husband just died, and she's just a widow. Isn't she ashamed to run out of the house every few days?" Chapter 3298. On the side, Dan Ling was serving food to them and hastily said, "Thankfully, Crown Prince Consort gave the order for the retainers to chase that mother and children away. Otherwise, who knows how long they would have made a ruckus." "Chased away?" The elderly prince was startled, and then he laughed out loud. Good. They should have been beaten up long ago." Princess Consort Kong brusquely glanced at the prince before saying with a smile, "What's the point of saying those senseless things in front of the child? All right, let's eat." "I didn't cook fish soup today," the elderly prince quietly grumbled. "I cooked it." Princess Consort Kong glanced at him in amusement and annoyance. "I wonder why the kitchen hasn't brought it over yet." "Then go take a look," the elderly prince repeatedly urged. "Go take a look at the kitchen and see if those servants are slacking off." "All right, I'll go take a look right now." Princess Consort Kong was helpless against him, so she could only stand up and leave the small sitting room. Arbor glanced at the princess consort's departing figure before turning to look at the elderly prince. "What do you want to say by purposely sending the princess consort away?" The elderly prince hastily shifted his stool over a bit and simply sat next to Arbor. He quietly said, "Little stoic, let me tell you something. Tomorrow, that Lu family will definitely come to make a ruckus. I'm telling you, since you have nothing better to do, just stay in this prince estate. At that time, you can help Royal Uncle beat them up." "Royal Uncle? Have you wanted to beat them for a long time?" The elderly prince nodded repeatedly. "Your royal aunt's mother is an old muddlehead. She's especially unreliable when doing things. Help me look after your royal aunt, and I'll gift Huangji Rice Shop to you later. How about it?" The little stoic nodded her small head, and the two immediately exchanged a tacit glance. Emolien, who was squeezed to the side, couldn't help but laugh. "Royal Uncle, Annie will be back soon. You should quickly return to your seat." This brat was truly a hindrance. The elderly prince disdainfully glanced at Prince Imo before winking at the little stoic. "Jojo, that cough." The old prince looked like he was constipated. He held it in for a long time without saying a complete sentence. He anxiously looked outside, as though he was waiting to see if Wang Fei would coincidentally enter the door. "Ahem, about that. Your Highness, please say it quickly." Arbor rolled his eyes. He felt tired listening to his father stammering. "Isn't that your auntie recently that took the beautifying pill you gave her, right? Then I look different every day. I'm becoming more and more young and beautiful. You don't like it?" Arbor had already guessed what he wanted to say, but he just kept teasing him with an expressionless face. No, that's not what I meant." The old prince glanced outside again and said in a low voice, "What I mean is that beautifying cream of yours, is it useful for us men?" Puffed. Emolien almost spat out a mouthful of soup. "Oh my, uncle, can you please give me a warning before you tell me a joke?" The little stoic's small face was taut as she asked in deadly earnest, "Your Highness, do you want beautifying?" The elderly prince glanced at his personal page boy, who had his head lowered and shoulders trembling. He waved his hand and shooed him away. Go, laugh outside. I'm not joking with you." Don't you also know? In the past, I ate that aging pill. My appearance cough has aged quite a bit. Isn't that your royal aunt is becoming more and more youthful? Chapter 3299. When the pitiful prince discovered that his wife was becoming more and more delicate and beautiful, he felt like he was her father when he stood next to his wife. He truly felt extremely stifled. He had to think of a way to change this situation. Hence, this guy immediately thought of Emollien's wife. That beautifying ointment is useless on men. If His Highness wants beautifying, I have an ointment here that is also useful for men. Hey, then give it. The elderly prince poked the little stoic's arm. Hurry up, don't keep it to yourself. Give Uncle Emperor a jar. If it's useful later, I'll sell it to you. It's not impossible to cheat Giant Pain. Arbor, you really are the Prince of Giant Pain's biological older brother. Here, take it and use it. I guarantee that you'll be 10 years younger within 3 months. In the future, don't foolishly take that aging pill again. Arbor glanced outside the window, the corners of his mouth turning up slightly. Hey, lower your voice. The elderly prince hastily put away the men's beautifying ointment and sneakily glanced outside the door. After a while, the Princess Consort walked in, but her eyes were a bit red. She sat next to the elderly prince and cast him a sidelong glance before saying with a smile, Come, bring in the fish soup. Jojo, Annie will scoop a bowl for you. Annie, we can start the acupuncture tomorrow. I checked on Annie today. Her body is recovering well. Good. The elderly prince said happily. Then you stay at home tomorrow to accompany your auntie. I'll go to the palace to answer a call. If there's nothing else, I'll come back earlier. Do you know how to play horse divinity games? Tomorrow, the 4 of us will play horse divinity games. I'm telling you, I've never lost in horse divinity games. It was night, and the moonlight was like water. After Arbor finished bathing, he sat next to the window and gazed at the night sky. He listened to the gentle wind rustling the leaves outside. His Highness is really happy today. Emollien walked out with a smile while drying her wet hair. That's right, I found out about Long Shoshin. Emollien put down the towel in her hand and raised her hand to dry her long hair. Then, she sat down beside Arbor and held her little hand. He really hasn't been doing well recently. It's said that his chest and head have been hurting a lot, but they can't find a reason. Everyone in the family said that he was too eager to practice martial arts, which causes meridians to be blocked. Arbor raised his delicate eyebrows and nodded. Then it seems that the cursed talisman worked. I didn't expect that Mrs. Mu would really avenge your mother-in-law. Emollien said, I'll get someone to keep an eye on the Long family. If there's any movement, we'll know immediately. Yes. Arbor nodded and leaned his head against his chest. One day, the clouds will part and the sun will shine. Yes. Emollien reached out to brush away the hair on her forehead and looked around. Do you have that feeling today? Arbor shook her head. Today, I feel lighter all over. That creepy feeling of being stared at has disappeared. This was also why she agreed to let Princess Kong move into the prince's estate. She wanted to test if she would still have that feeling of being stared at if she stayed at Prince Kang's estate. As it turned out, she didn't. Then it seems that there's something strange about the Mu family. Emollien naturally trusted his little wife's intuition. Intuition was something that couldn't be explained clearly, but he trusted his Jojo unconditionally. Chapter 3300. Xiaomu busied herself inside Paradise Planet the entire night and made a lot of pills. She then chatted with Mayan, that fellow, for a bit before running out of Paradise Planet. At this time, the sky was already bright. Arbor didn't sleep for an entire night, but she was still full of energy. Thinking that she didn't feel sleepy, she didn't want to go back to Fish Orchid Planet to catch up on sleep. When she was in the Mu family, she always felt that there was an invisible pair of eyes watching her, so she was cautious and didn't enter Paradise Planet. It was only when she came to Prince Kang's residence that she entered Paradise Planet. The enhanced warm jade pill she made for Imperial Ant took half a year to refine. In the short term, she should be fine. After that, she would give Imperial Ant acupuncture treatment once a month and take the enhanced warm jade pill continuously. She wasn't bragging, but perhaps she would be fine in half a year. Maybe by the end of the year, Jojo's Lotus would have a white and chubby little brother. After thinking for a while, Arbor's little face couldn't help but redden. She then called Kaishio to come in and help her dress up. Today, she changed into a bright red battle suit. According to the old prince's speculation, the Liu family would probably come to make a fuss today. She had to protect Imperial Antwell. Speaking of this battle suit, the clothes from Nikhang Market were indeed a little expensive, but the craftsmanship was really good. The few colors that were stitched together were also to her liking. Jojo Darren stepped out of the door and coincidentally bumped into Louis Ran, who was strolling in. Louis Ran's expression suddenly changed. "Why are you here?" Louis Ran went to visit a good sister yesterday and only just returned. She had just returned to the Fu and hadn't heard the servants mention that the Crown Prince Consort was staying overnight in the Wang Fu. As a result, when she saw the young Crown Prince Consort, she wasn't mentally prepared at all and was truly shocked. Louis Ran's reaction was too agitated. The servant girl beside her hurriedly went forward and secretly tugged at her, giving her a look. The other party was the Crown Princess. Louis Ran really didn't know what this Miss Liu was thinking to actually ask such a rude question, since the Crown Princess had appeared in the Wang Fu at this time. Then Wang Fei must have asked her to stay. Arbor couldn't be bothered to pay attention to her. He didn't even bother to look at her from the corner of his eye. He just brushed past her. Louis Ran's expression changed, and without thinking, she reached out to grab Arbor's wrist. "What are you doing here again?" Ever since she met the Crown Princess, Louis Ran felt that she had never had a good day. His Highness and His Highness loved this young Crown Prince Consort so much that they loved her even more than their adopted daughter. What right did she have to be the only one doted on by the Prince and Princess Consort and steal all the benefits from her? Previously, Wang Yi had gifted the land within 100 li of Half Moon Cliff to the young Crown Prince Consort without batting an eye, as well as the 5 prosperous shops in the capital, the exquisite fire brocade bracelet that Wang Fei had given her, and so on. When Louis Ran thought about how these things originally belonged to her, but they all fell into the hands of this stoic face for no reason, she felt her heart clench. It was so painful that she almost couldn't breathe. That Crown Princess was too shameless. She came to the Wang Fu with the intention of swindling things out of them. The more Louis Ran looked at this young Crown Prince Consort, the more she looked like a relative who had come to ask for money. Her eyes stared sharply at the Crown Prince Consort's back, as though she wanted nothing more than to pierce a hole through her back. Arbor had already noticed this woman's resentful expression, and she couldn't help but frown slightly. She abruptly turned around, and her icy gaze landed on Louis Ran's face. Poor Louis Ran was currently glaring at the Crown Princess and was caught off guard when she turned around. When she met the little Crown Princess' cold gaze, Louis Ran was instantly defeated. Chapter 33:01. How could she possibly look the young Crown Princess in the eye for an extended period of time? There was no harm without comparison. She originally thought that her gaze was sharp enough, but the moment she met the young Crown Princess, all of her sharpness turned into bubbles and shadows. The moment she saw this stoic face's expressionless appearance, she couldn't help but feel apprehensive from the bottom of her heart. The corners of Louis Ran's mouth twitched slightly with sweat on her face, and she appropriately adjusted her stiff facial expression. "Gee, Crown Princess, why are you looking at me like that?" Arbor glanced at her coldly and then said, "Miss Liu, it was you who kept staring at me with a strange gaze just now." Louis Ran was actually a bit speechless. She secretly gritted her teeth, pinched the handkerchief in her hand, and said with a feigned smile, "I was thinking that since the Crown Princess is living in the estate, I ought to perform the duties of a host." "Crown Princess, please." Louis Ran's expression suddenly changed under the constant tugging of her sleeve by the maidservant behind her, and she forced a smile. However, that smile was too fake. When it hung on her face, it looked like a layer of paper had been drawn on, and it was even prettier when she didn't smile. Arbor expressionlessly glanced at her before turning around and walking towards the antechamber. Louis Ran secretly shook off her personal maidservant's hand and quickly followed after her. She asked with a fake smile, Crown Princess, pardon me for asking, but does the Crown Prince know that you've come to Prince Kang's estate just like that? Would the Eastern Palace allow you to come and go as you please? Even if the Crown Prince allowed you to live in the estate, what would the Emperor think if this matter were to reach his ears? The Crown Princess was walking so closely with Prince Kang's estate, so she probably had some sort of scheme in mind. Lu Yiran's red lips curled slightly, presumptuously trying to figure out the Emperor's thoughts. Mile Yin naturally came with me. Arbor expressionlessly replied, "That's right, the Crown Prince has to be informed. What?" When Lu Yiran reached the end of her sentence, her voice suddenly rose by an octave. "His Highness the Crown Prince followed you into the estate? Is there a problem?" Arbor glanced at her, scrunched up his pink little face, and unhappily glanced at Lu Yiran. It was really annoying for him to shout in Lord Xiao Qiao's ear with all his fuss. "I don't think this is a good idea." Lu Yiran furrowed her brows and forced a smile. "Although the Crown Princess does as she pleases, she still has to consider your Highness in everything she does." Lu Yiran was just short of saying to his face, "You always let the Crown Prince leave the Eastern Palace with you, going back to your maiden home one moment and jumping around the prince's estate the next. It's really not good." Arbor gave her a sideways glance and said confidently, "He's my husband. Wherever I go, he has to go with me. What's wrong with that?" Lu Yiran stared dumbfounded at the weirdo in front of her. "Could it be that your identity has been swapped? In their divine land, not to mention the Crown Prince's noble status. Even a commoner with a high cultivation in Jianghu had the right to speak in front of women. What kind of godly logic did the little Crown Princess have? What did she mean by His Highness the Crown Prince had to follow her?" Arbor couldn't be bothered with this Lu Yiran anymore. He muttered, "You're crazy." Then, he took small steps and walked toward the front hall. It was really too much to say when they didn't see eye to eye. He didn't know what this Lu Yiran was thinking. If her husband didn't follow her back to her maiden home and didn't follow her everywhere, was he still her, Jojo's husband? Chapter 3302. Lu Yiran's expression was somewhat dazed, her mind still digesting Arbor's words. There was too much information in those words. It meant that His Highness the Crown Prince obeyed this weirdo's every command. His Highness the Crown Prince followed her wherever she liked. Since when did the status of women in the divine mainland become so high? Lu Yiran followed Arbor blindly. When she turned the corner from the corridor to the front hall, she saw two maids carrying buckets of water and bending over to wipe the corridor pole. Lu Yiran's eyes turned slightly. She quickly walked forward and pushed away the hands of the maids behind her, who hurriedly tried to stop her. She abruptly kicked those buckets of water. The buckets splashed with water, splashing straight at the back of Arbor's head. Arbor did not even turn her head. She slightly raised her small hand. A large transparent water droplet suddenly emerged from the top of her head. That water droplet suddenly grew small arms and legs. Its eyes abruptly opened, and before Lu Yiran could react, it threw a punch at the water splashing at her. Bang! The water bucket, along with the gushing water, splashed back at him. That wooden bucket even landed on Lu Yiran's head with a clang. She was so frightened and angry that she started crying on the spot. She overestimated herself. Qiao Mu did not even spare her a glance out of the corner of her eye. She turned around the corridor and walked straight to the anteroom, slowly entering it. Lu Yiran sobbing behind her had long been tossed to the back of her mind. She saw many exquisite pastries on the table, as well as food like porridge and noodles. When Princess Consort Kong saw her enter, she could not help but smile and wave at her. "Jojo, come quickly. Breakfast is ready. Eat it while it's hot." Arbor took small steps and sat down at the table. "Imperial Aunt, I bumped into Lu Yiran on the way here." The little fellow complained first. She rolled her eyes and said, "She kicked over a wooden bucket to embarrass me, but in the end, she got herself into big trouble." She had just finished speaking when Princess Kong stilled. Then she heard Lu Yiran's sharp cries and angry shouts from outside the front hall. "Arbor!" Willow was still drenched in water as he rushed in. His eyes were fixed on Arbor as he shouted, "You! How dare you treat me like this?" "Mother, Lu Iran turned her head towards Princess Consort Kong and cried. Arbor, she shut up. Princess Consort Kong frowned and interrupted her unhappily. Why are you directly calling the crown princess by her name? Where did all the rules you learned go? Don't get too close to the Xiong family in the future. That girl from the Xiong family isn't a good person either. Princess Consort Kong said coldly. She had no choice but to learn the habits of the marketplace. Her words and actions are unbearably vulgar. Lu Iran looked at Princess Consort Kong and felt her heart turn cold. In the past, the Princess Consort was still somewhat amiable towards her, but ever since she had this crown princess as a comparison, the Princess Consort looked down on her even more. This was all this damned crown princess's fault. The little crown princess turned to glance at Lu Iran and said with a humph, Be more careful when you walk in the future. Don't like to kick over buckets for no reason. Buckets don't have eyes, and they might even bite back at their owner. Wouldn't the losses outweigh the gains? You. Lu Iran pointed at Arbor and screamed repeatedly. You're too much of a bully. How could Princess Consort Kong not understand? This Lu Iran asked for trouble and suffered the consequences of her own actions. Chapter 3303. She originally wanted to set up the little crown princess, but she ended up being set up instead. Aren't you going back to your room to change? Princess Consort Kong chided. Lu Iran left in tears, wishing that she could stomp a few holes in the floor. Jojo, I've embarrassed myself in front of you. Princess Consort Kong shook her head and couldn't help but sigh. Back then, wasn't it the old lady who insisted on shoving Lu Iran to her, saying that she saw that she had no children and wanted her to raise a girl so that they could chat and relieve boredom? In the beginning, when they didn't have a close relationship, the Princess Consort thought that Lu Iran was pretty good. Being cheerful and lively did relieve her boredom a lot. But once they got to know each other, Lu Iran's petty nature was completely exposed. This matter couldn't be entirely blamed on her sister-in-law. After all, Lu Iran was raised by the old lady since she was young. To be able to raise such a character, it could be seen that she was deeply influenced by the old lady. Princess Consort Kong pondered whether she should find a day to send Lu Iran back to the Lu family. When her health improved in the future, she would be able to go out more often. With Lu Iran's unpresentable appearance, it wouldn't be good to bring her out frequently, lest she embarrass the Prince Kong estate. But if she didn't bring her out every time, with Lu Iran's petty nature, she wouldn't say anything even if she kept it in for the first or second time. But after the third or fourth time, she would definitely make a fuss. Imperial Aunt, what are you worried about? Arbor pulled down her hand that was supporting her forehead and picked up a pastry for her. It's delicious. Try it. Princess Consort Kong couldn't help but laugh and nodded. She had just picked up her chopsticks when she saw the doorkeeper stumble in anxiously as if he was being chased by a ghost. Oh no. Princess Consort, the old lady of the Lu family, has brought people here to cause a ruckus. Princess Consort Kang's pupils contracted slightly. Her fingers that held the chopsticks tightly clenched, and an expression of disbelief hung on her face. That mother of hers actually brought people here to cause a ruckus? She was really vigorous despite her age. Sir Jojo jumped to the ground with a thump. He waved his hand and called out, Danling, is everyone in the estate here? Danling immediately nodded proudly. Yes, they're all waiting at the door. Follow me. Arbor waved his small hand and rushed out of the hall. Danling immediately shouted. Together with the dozens of servants on her left and right, a group of people followed the little crown princess and ran away. Only Princess Consort Kong was left behind. She stared at the empty hall in bewilderment, speechless for a while. If they're all ordinary people, then you guys go. Don't worry about asking for compensation if you break it. Just hit them as hard as you can. Sir Jojo led more than 200 servants and rushed to the main entrance of Prince Kang's mansion. If there are any cultivators, leave them all to me. Yes, open the door. Arbor waved his hand, and more than 200 servants swarmed forward. Following which, the vermilion-red doors of the Prince Manor slowly opened to both sides. The old lady immediately appeared at the main entrance of the prince's mansion with 40 to 50 ferocious-looking men. A group of busybodies were hiding in a corner and watching from afar, not understanding what had happened. Looking at the situation, did someone come to Prince Kang's mansion to cause a ruckus? Oh, isn't this the young widow that was chased away by the prince's mansion yesterday? A passerby who had seen yesterday's drama called out. He was immediately surrounded by people asking for more information. Chapter 33:04. Lu Lanxin was standing beside old lady Lu, sobbing and wiping her handkerchief. As soon as the gate of the mansion opened, Lu Lanxin quickly glanced inside. She was stunned by what she saw. Hundreds of servants and maids were standing at the gate of the mansion, all looking at them fiercely. Lu Lanxin's heart sank, and she subconsciously hid behind old Madame Lu. Was Lu Lanyan out of her mind? She didn't want to save the face of the mansion anymore, did she? Thinking of this, Lu Lanxin couldn't help but grit her teeth. Why was this damned woman so difficult to deal with now? Old Lady Lu was also shocked by the group of servants at the gate of the mansion. She quickly glanced at them, but she didn't see her eldest daughter, Lu Lanyan. She was even more surprised, and her eyes fell on Arbor, who was obviously the leader. Who are you? Where's my daughter? Where did you hide my daughter? Hurry up and find my daughter. I want to confront her face to face. Why did she treat her little sister like this? Did she abandon the Lu mansion and her family after becoming the princess? The little crown princess didn't pay attention to them at all. She waved her little fist and said, "Go, go." Dan Ling waved her arm, and all the servants and maids rushed at the people of the Lu mansion as if they had been injected with chicken blood. They didn't hit old Lady Lu. Instead, they went around her, grabbed Lu Lanxin's bra, and slapped her twice without saying a word. Slap, slap. Lu Lanxin, the little white flower, was instantly stunned by the two slaps. Little white flower cried with tears in her eyes. There is no law. There is no law. Slap, slap. Two more slaps. No one knew who was so fierce, but little white flower was slapped so hard that she fell backward. The other servants swarmed up and attacked Lu Lanxin's son and daughter. Huang Yubao and Huang Youxiao were just ordinary people, and Huang Yubao was a useless playboy who didn't even have the strength to truss a chicken. How could he resist the ferocious attacks of everyone who was whipping him to death? After a round of attacks, Huang Yubao and Huang Youxiao were beaten until they cried out in pain. Huang Yubao stretched out his hand to resist the fierce attacks of the servants. He cried and shouted, "Stop! Stop! Ayo, you guys stop! There were more than 200 servants and maids, and they were divided into 3 waves of attacks. Their cooperation was really good. After the first round of beating the Lu family members, another group of people went up. The cycle repeated, and the person who finished drawing the whip would be able to catch his breath while accumulating his strength. When the other 2 rounds were done, the person in the first round would be able to go up bravely again. The onlookers who were watching from afar were simply dumbfounded and tongue-tied. The passerby who had explained the situation earlier couldn't help but stutter. Then it seems that the Wang Fu has been merciful to that little widow yesterday. Today's attack was even more ferocious than yesterday's. The guards of the prince's mansion were like ferocious dragons out of their cages. Terrifying. Arbor stood aside and watched for a while. Then he turned and walked into the mansion. Old Lady Lu was so angry that she was about to collapse to the ground, her body trembling uncontrollably. Looking at the messy crowd around her, she couldn't help but scream, You stop right there. Stop right there." Arbor didn't bother to talk to her. He waved his hand and left. Chapter 33:05. Halfway there, they ran into Princess Consort Kong, who was hurrying over. Arbor reached out to stop her. She pursed her lips and looked serious as she bombarded her with another round of brainwashing. "Princess Consort, you can't be like this. The reason the Lu family dares to act so recklessly is most likely because of your indulgence. You really have the same temperament as my mother." Arbor shook her head, her expression rueful. "With your soft and meek temperaments, how can you not be completely taken advantage of? Princess Consort Kong didn't know whether to laugh or cry at her mischievous behavior. I can't compare to your mother at all. Your mother is a prodigy with outstanding talent. I'm just a normal person, so I can't be associated with her at all. Arbor shook her head and wagged her finger as she said, "You're all the same, too good-tempered. I'm always bullied by some random people." That said, she expressionlessly sighed. "If you can learn a little from me, you won't be bullied again in the future." Princess Consort Kong. This child had to brag about her own awkwardness and even glanced at her worriedly. That little look was truly adorable, making Princess Consort Kong burst out laughing. If I had such a cute daughter like you, I'd wake up laughing even in my dreams." Princess Consort Kong couldn't resist reaching out to pinch her little face. Arbor pulled her back to the antechamber. An hour later, Damling ran back with a grin on her face. She called out as soon as she entered, "Princess Consort, Crown Princess, they've all been chased away." "Well done." Arbor nodded, then turned to look at Princess Consort Kong and said, "Imperial Aunt, if they come to make trouble again in the future, just use this method and give them a good beating. I guarantee that within half a month, no one from the Liu family will dare to come to the Prince Estate's door. You'll definitely have a lot more peace and quiet." Princess Consort Kang's mouth twitched, and she hastily nodded. Then she looked at her suspiciously. This method wasn't planned by the old prince, was it? The more she looked at it, the more suspicious she became. If it wasn't arranged by the old prince, how could the hundreds of people in the prince's mansion all gather together so coincidentally? Arbor said expressionlessly, "His Highness is someone who handles important matters in the court. Why would he be troubled by such trivial matters?" Princess Consort Kong thought it made sense, so she nodded. "I think that after this mess, they probably won't come to make trouble again in the next few days." She was afraid that there would be more rumors in the capital. Who knew how people would spread the word about the violence of Prince Kang's mansion? However, on the second and third days, the capital was calm and peaceful. There was no news at all. There was no rumor that was unfavorable to Prince Kang's mansion. The little crown princess stayed in the prince's residence for 3 consecutive days. Before the Liu family came to make a fuss again, Mu Jingfeng sent someone to rush her back. The moment she entered the Mu family's main hall, she saw Mu Jingfeng's sullen expression. "Why do you keep going to the prince's residence to disturb others? It's better than staying here and looking at your dead face." Arbor's lips twitched. Throwing him an indifferent gaze, he casually walked to the old man's side and sat down. "Jojo, I called you back today to ask you if you want to sign up for the family competition." The old man asked as he looked at her amiably. "Haha, little niece's innate talent is exceptional. Presumably, she must want to sign up." Mu Jingxing's tone was a bit eccentric, and he even secretly peeked at Arbor as he spoke. "What are the rewards?" Chapter 3306. The elderly patriarch had long been familiar with his granddaughter's tricks, so he said with a smile, "The rewards are naturally quite generous. The top 3 winners can go to Choyang Pavilion to receive a refined weapon that is at least a spirit weapon. Moreover, they will receive 1,000,000 spirit coins, 500,000 spirit coins, and 100,000 spirit coins respectively." He glanced at his youngest granddaughter's face and inwardly thought, "My youngest granddaughter probably won't take a fancy to this spirit coin reward." No expression could be discerned from the little stoic's face. Apart from this, you can also go to the Spirit Beast Garden to pick a spirit beast you like and let a spirit beast trainer tame it for you. In the future, you could train with all of you. But the elderly patriarch coughed, his expression rather awkward. "That Chaoyang Pavilion, cough, cough. Not everyone can enter. It depends on Ancestor's intentions. If Ancestor doesn't allow you to enter, cough, even if you win first place, you still won't be able to enter." What did he mean? The prize for the first place might turn into a cooked duck and fly away? The little fellow's small face immediately tensed up tightly. The elderly patriarch reflexively twitched his mouth when he saw her small expression, and he hastily added, "But don't worry, even if you can't enter Chuyang Pavilion, it's fine. At that time, the family will also consider compensating you." It wasn't that the little girl absolutely wanted the rewards inside Chaoyang Pavilion. She had recently plundered a lot of spirit weapons and the like, and a few drops every day were enough for her to play with. However, shouldn't what was supposed to be hers originally be hers? How could he say he would give it and then not give it? Wasn't this the behavior of a big swindler? What kind of place is Chaoyang Pavilion? Oh, that's the treasure trove set up by Chaoyang's ancestor. A round-faced young man at the side hurriedly interjected. Only 1 in 1,000 people in the family can enter to choose the treasures. Most of them are directly ejected when they reach the entrance. They don't even have the chance to enter. The young man was called Mu Wuzi, the child born of 5th uncle's concubine. Arbor normally wasn't very close to the Mu family, and she might not even recognize many of the direct descendants in the family, let alone those born of concubines. Upon hearing this, Arbor only nodded and turned to ask the elderly patriarch, "When is the competition?" "Grandpa's birthday is in 4 days." Old Master Mu strokes his beard and says with a smile, "It's just a competition between the children of the family. Don't overdo it. Don't overdo it." Arbor nodded. "Is there any other way to visit Chaoyang Tower?" The old man was stunned for a moment before he nodded with a smile. Chaoyang Pavilion will only be open 1 month after this old man's birthday banquet. Indeed, this is the only way to get a chance to visit. Cough. Ancestor doesn't like too many people. If more than 3 people go, those below the spirit realm will be repelled. In the past few years, there were still 30 to 50 people who could enter the Chaoyang Pavilion to choose treasures. Although not many people managed to obtain suitable treasures, they could still be considered as having visited the pavilion. But in recent years ahem, the ancestor's temper has worsened. Since the year before last, he has only allowed 3 people in. These 3 must be the most outstanding people in the family. Moreover, those who have entered once and selected a treasure will not have another chance to enter again. The little fellow pursed her lips, thinking that the ancestor's temper was quite bad. He also had a lot of bad habits and rules. Since that's the case, then let this lord go and meet him. Arbor nodded. Let's do it. Chapter 3307. The elderly patriarch laughed heartily and patted her small head. You agreed without even listening to me talk about the competition rules. Speak. Lady Xiao had a resolute look on her face. We are a talisman patrician family. The competition can only compare talismans and the purity of talisman energy. Cultivation, spiritual energy, and pills are all forbidden. The elderly patriarch asked with a grin, Do you understand? The little stoic nodded expressionlessly, but she was inexplicably a bit excited in her heart. It was better than talismans. She loved competing with people in talismans the most. Additionally, the competition rules forbid the use of inner worlds and storage talismans. The talismans used in the competition must be drawn in the preliminaries and recorded by a specialist. The preliminaries are the day before the competition and will be supervised by your uncles. All the talismans drawn in the next 24 hours can be used in tomorrow's competition. Of course, you can find helpers to draw with you. After all, it was already pretty good for a normal person to draw 10 talismans in 24 hours. If they didn't find someone to draw with them, they probably wouldn't have enough talismans to use in the competition. Besides, there was also the problem of talisman formation rate. Even if one could draw 20 talismans in a day and use more than 10, the talisman formation rate was already pretty good. Helpers are allowed at most 2 people. These are the competition rules, the elderly patriarch said with a chuckle. Everyone has to compete to see who can draw for the others, Arbor said in confusion. But your eldest brother can help you. The round-faced Mu Wuzi couldn't resist interrupting. Your eldest brother has already entered Morning Sun Pavilion, so it doesn't matter if he competes or not. However, your eldest brother helped Mu Rochuan draw last year. Unfortunately, even if Mu Rochuan won first place last year, she didn't have the fate to enter Morning Sun Pavilion. She was still ejected by Morning Sun Pavilion's ancestor in disdain. Ha! Wuzi. 5th Uncle Mu, Jingyang glared at him irritably. Mu Wuzi shrugged and stood to the side with his arms crossed in a sloppy manner. He muttered, Aren't I speaking the truth? With Mu Xingqian helping Mu Rochuan draw talismans, it would be strange if Mu Rochuan didn't win. Unfortunately, she didn't have the fate to enter Morning Sun Pavilion. Instead, it benefited the third place, Mu Yuan from the branch faction. She actually found a level 15 spiritual weapon in Morning Sun Pavilion. It was close to a divine artifact, so one could imagine how powerful it was. It wasn't that Mu Wuzi was being sarcastic. He was just joking when he said it. His vivid description made it feel like he was telling a story. He thought that it was funny that Miss Mu, who was so proud and arrogant, couldn't even compare to Mu Yuan, who was from a branch family, even though she had won first place. Mu Wuzi couldn't help but laugh when he thought of her dark expression last year. This eldest miss was usually so arrogant, but didn't she stop at Chaoyang restaurant? Who said that ancestor Chaoyang had to look up to a genius? The ancestor obviously looked down on eldest young miss. Last year was just a small accident. Mu Rochuan's voice appeared at the entrance of the hall. Her elegant and proud figure stood in front of everyone. With a cold face, she walked towards Old Man Mu and glanced at Mu Wuzi with contempt. A piece of trash who didn't even enter the top 10 has the nerve to mock others? Mu Rochuan, what are you being so arrogant for? Mu Wuzi was furious and impulsively rushed towards her. Wuzi! Mu Jingyang stopped him with a warning look. Chapter 33:08. That's exactly what I wanted to throw at you. Mu Rochuan coldly glanced at Mu Wuzi. Why do you have to be so arrogant in front of grandfather and uncles? In terms of seniority, I'm a few years older than you, and I'm your legitimate eldest sister from the eldest branch. In terms of aptitude, you're far inferior to me. Take back your sarcastic words and save your energy. Go back and cultivate properly. Mu Rochuan unceremoniously rebuked Mu Wuzi with a sharp gaze. A bastard from the 5th branch dared to bare his fangs and brandish his claws in front of her. Did he really think that she wouldn't dare to punish him? Mu Jingyang's face darkened, and he coldly sneered. Eldest brother, your daughter is quite impressive. She's really full of herself when she puts on airs. Mu Jingfeng's lips twitched with a fake smile, but he did not interrupt. Whenever he thought of how this girl had lied to him about everything after returning from the mystic realm, he felt very displeased. With this thought, his gaze landed on Arbor again. He recalled what Mu Rochuan said to him. Could this Arbor really draw teleportation talismans? Did Grandfather Mu know about this? There were many people here, and Mu Jingfeng wasn't stupid. He naturally wouldn't ask about Arbor in this kind of situation. He planned to have a heart-to-heart talk with his daughter after leaving Grandfather Mu's place. Grandfather Mu unhappily patted the armrest of his chair. All right, stop fooling around. Wuzi, you can leave. Xian is right. She's your eldest sister, so don't go overboard with your words. Xian Wuzi is young. You have to be more tolerant of him. Don't be too calculative with him. After reprimanding Mu Wuzi, Grandfather Mu turned to look at Mu Rochuan with a frown. Yes, Grandfather. Mu Rochuan did not refute this time. Instead, she obediently bowed and nodded. On the other hand, Mu Wuzi was impulsive. How could he hold back his anger? Fortunately, his father, Mu Jingyang, held him back. Otherwise, he would have rushed up and started a fight with Mu Rochuan. All right. Grandfather Mu looked at these good-for-nothings, and his head couldn't help but hurt a little. There's nothing else. You can all leave. Jojo, stay and talk to me. With Grandpa Mu's words, Mu Jingfeng, Mu Jingyang, and the rest had no choice but to retreat one by one. Before Mu Rochuan left, she coldly glanced at Arbor before walking out with her head held high. Mu Jingyang grabbed his son Mu Wuzi by the neck and brought him to a small path beside the garden. Mu Wuzi cried out, Hey, Dad, what are you doing? Father, be gentle. My neck. Hey, my neck is going to break. Stinking brat. Mu Jingyang angrily slapped him on the head. How many times have I told you? Don't be too impulsive. Just don't listen. Look at what you said in front of the old man. Oomph. That bitch Mu Rochuan's words weren't pleasant to hear either. Who was she pretending to be a saintess all day long? Last year, if it weren't for my stinky hands, I wouldn't have failed to break into the top 10 and been eliminated in one round. Those brothers from the side branches who aren't as talented as me all have better results than me. They even mocked me for an entire year. Enough. Mu Jingyang poked his son's head in exasperation. I don't even know who you take after with your impulsive personality. Chapter 3309. You don't know how to do things all day long, and don't blame yourself for not finding the reason. Why don't you say that your skills aren't good enough, and that you'll be brushed aside as soon as you meet a young lady? Then isn't she older than me? Mu Wuzi retorted indignantly. The father and son pair walked far away, while cursing. Mu Jingfeng came out from behind the tree and coldly glanced at the father and son pair's departing figures. Then he stood in place and specially waited for the little stoic. It wasn't until less than an hour later that Mu Jingfeng finally saw the little stoic coming out of the old man's courtyard. His face was gloomy, and he stepped forward to block her path. I have something to say to you. There's nothing to say between us. Arbor glanced at him coldly. He was disinclined to say anything else and directly walked past him. Halt! Mu Jingfeng was so angry that his face and neck were a bit red. I'm asking you, do you know how to draw transportation talismans? Arbor paused and turned to look at him. His eyes narrowed icily. Mu Rochuan told you? It doesn't matter who told me. You just have to tell me yes or no. Arbor snorted and rolled his eyes at him without hesitation. It's none of your business. Mu Jingfeng was first angry, but then he was delighted. The little stoic didn't deny it, which meant that this matter was true. Mu Jingfeng couldn't help but become excited. As the family head of a talisman clan, he knew better than anyone how difficult it was to draw transportation talismans. His daughter could actually draw a transportation talisman that cost millions of spirit coins on the black market. What did this mean? It meant that Arbor knew how to draw transportation talismans. Mu Jingfeng couldn't help but become excited when he thought of this. His daughter actually knew how to draw transportation talismans that had disappeared for several hundred years. One exciting piece of news this was. It had to be known that the method to draw transportation talismans had long been lost in the Talisman Patrician clan. The existing transportation talisman matrices were all left behind by the ancestors, and there were only a few left on the market. Once Mu Jingfeng thought about how he could grasp the method to draw transportation talismans, he would burst with joy. If that was the case, not only would his status in the Mu clan be raised a lot, he would also gain the support of more elders. Perhaps in the future, no one would be able to threaten his position as the patriarch. In addition, their Mu family's reputation would definitely rise to the next level. The entire Mu family would flourish in his hands, bringing unparalleled glory to their ancestors. Mu Jingfeng seemed to have foreseen the Mu family's future, and he was beaming with joy like a spring breeze. Jojo, you're a daughter of the Mu family. Naturally, you have to think for the Mu family. The method of drawing the teleportation talisman is extremely important to my Mu clan. If you are willing, I'm not willing. Arbor's cold words were like a bucket of ice water that poured over Mu Jingfeng from head to toe, chilling him to the bone. Mu Jingfeng was incomparably enraged on the spot as he bellowed. You? What did you say? Deafness needs to be treated. Arbor glanced at him, then turned around and walked towards Yulan Court. Not a single word would be wasted if they didn't see eye to eye. She really didn't know where he got the guts to actually think that Sir Jojo would tell him the method to draw transportation talismans. Even if she told the street cats and dogs, he wouldn't benefit from it. Save it. You're always deceiving yourself and others. Did you think that Sir Jojo would compromise like Mother? Dream on. Chapter 33:10. Arbor, stop right there. Arbor, stop right there. Arbor. Mu Jingfeng's shout was louder than the previous one. He then rushed over in a flustered and exasperated manner to block her path. He looked like he was about to explode from anger as he coldly looked at Arbor and said, Arbor, is this how you speak to your father? Arbor curled his lips and looked at him coldly as he mocked. Father? Mu Jingfeng was agitated by his attitude and felt all the blood in his head rush to his head as his face flushed red. Let me ask you, Rochuan said that the Sun Moon's secret realm you guys went to collapsed. Is that true? Arbor swept him a glance, feeling that his style of forcefully changing the topic was a little abrupt. However, the little fellow really wanted to know to what extent this person could continue to disgust people, so she calmly nodded. That's right. Rochuan said that before the secret realm collapsed, you packed up quite a lot of things inside, right? Arbor somewhat understood what he was going to say next and looked at him with raised brows. Don't tell me you want these cultivation resources? Snatch them from your daughter's hands? When Xiao Mu uttered the word daughter, she was like a malicious spirit that had walked out from hell. Her pair of eyes that resembled icy pearls stared fixedly at the man in front of her, without a trace of human life from head to toe. Mu Jingfeng's bones abruptly turned cold from her gaze, and he was suddenly unable to respond. He hastily and awkwardly smiled at her. W, what are you talking about? I just wanted to remind you. Since you have so many cultivation resources by your side, you have to be more careful in the future. Otherwise, if you're accidentally discovered by someone with ulterior motives, you might attract some unnecessary trouble. His words were full of fatherly love, but what he got in return was Arbor's cold gaze that could drop dregs. Mu Jingfeng instantly felt his heart sink as he looked at his daughter gloomily. The little fellow's lips curled slightly as she calmly said, Someone with ulterior motives? Is it someone as ambitious as you? If the thing she placed in Paradise Planet could be snatched away, then there would be no safe place in this world. The conversation between the father and daughter only lasted for a few minutes, but they parted on bad terms. Not long after Arbor returned to the Yulon Garden, he was invited to Madame Mu's gilded garden by two well-looking old nannies with a smile. When he entered, he saw that the young ladies and madams from the second, fourth, and fifth branches were all present. At first glance, it really was a joyous and harmonious scene. The fourth branch's young lady, Mu Ro-Chin, was a sweet-tempered, delicate, and sickly woman. When she saw Arbor, she stood up and bowed. Her voice was soft, so one had to get close to hear what she was saying. The fifth wife, Madame Hua, had been married to fifth uncle for many years but had not had any children. Mu Wuzi could be considered as a concubine's son raised by her. The second branch's wife, Madame Xiao, and the second branch's daughter, Mu Ruian, had met them once at New South Garden in Arbor, so he had some impressions of them. Arbor had interacted with the first branch's Madame Mu and those few troublesome young ladies quite often. Thus, when they met, they were all familiar faces. Jojo, you're here. Mu Qingya appeared to be in high spirits today, smiling very gently and amiably at Arbor. The fifth wife, Madame Hua, also smiled and said, Crown Princess, do you know how to play Mahjong? Arbor calmly replied, I know a thing or two. Chapter 33:11. That's good. Madame Nehua giggled. Since we have nothing to do, we'll have to trouble the Crown Princess to play a few rounds with the ants. Very well. Sir Jojo had an indifferent expression on his face as he readily sat down on his seat. Mu Qingya shook her head with a smile. Second branch's Madame Ne Chio and fifth branch's Madame Ne Hua quickly called out to her, Eldest sister-in-law, let's play together for a while. I won't play. Mu Qingya shook her head and said, I get dizzy when I hit this. Madame Ne Chio pursed her lips and muttered something in a low voice. Then, she grabbed a nanny next to her to play with her. That old nanny played with her three masters and was so frightened that she felt uncomfortable all over. It was as if there were needles poking her, and her body kept twisting here and there. Bam! Madame Nehua waved her hand with a grin. The little stoic was hit by Madame Nehua 3 times in a row and skipped 3 rounds, but she was still expressionless. Sorry. Madame Nehua covered her mouth with a handkerchief and giggled. Fifth sister-in-law's luck is pretty good today. Madame Ne Chio shot a stern look at the old nanny next to her. The other party shuddered in fright and hastily played a card that Madame Ne Chio wanted. Madame Ne Chio immediately received the card and heard the card in one go. She then picked another card in passing, and her eyes instantly lit up. The smile on her lips was almost unconcealable. Haha, all of them are right. I'm really sorry, everyone. I didn't expect to get off to a good start. It's not your turn to touch second ant yet. The little stoic reminded expressionlessly, and then took the card from the stiff-faced Madame Natchio's hand. This card is mine. You can't be so shameless. Mu Qingyao sat on the side and watched. When she heard this, she involuntarily coughed lightly and drank tea to hide her smile. Madame Natchio was stupefied. She recalled her hand speed just now. It seemed like she stole a card. It was fine. She heard it so early, so it would definitely be her turn. A 9 Lotus Lantern. Thank you. 88,000 spirit coins per card. The little stoic pushed the card and extended her slender hand. What? The young Crown Prince Consort also wanted the card that she wanted. She even picked a 9 Lotus Lantern. Fuck. She only knew a little? You must be lying. Madame Hua and Madame Chio were dumbfounded. The old nanny was so frightened that she fell off the stool. Get up, Madame Chio shouted angrily. I'll pay for your share. What are you afraid of? This is just the beginning. The next 8 rounds were like this, tubular 9 Lotus Lantern. Thank you. 88 spirit coins for each. 1,000 colored 9 Lotus Lanterns. Thank you. 88 spirit coins for each. After 13 rounds, Crown Prince Imo trod on the afterglow of the setting sun to pick up his wifey, who was playing exceedingly happily. As soon as he stepped through the gate of the Gilded Garden, he was stunned to see Madame Chio and Madame Hua pouncing on him. They threw themselves at his feet and cried, Your Highness, quickly take your crown princess back. It was their fault for being so arrogant. They had thought that the little crown princess was young and easy to trick, so they had teamed up to trick her. Who knew what a terrible price to pay? The little crown princess looked at them expressionlessly and said to Kai Shio, Give the bill to the 2 madams. It's the crown princess. Kai Shio stifled a belly full of laughter, and the corner of her mouth kept twitching as she walked forward. She deftly handed the bill to the 2 madams who were crying miserably. Thanks to the 2 ants' care, this crown princess had a great time playing today. Let's play together again next time. The little crown princess nodded politely at the 2 of them. She stood up and pattered to her husband's side, naturally holding his hand. Let's go home. Chapter 33:12. The 2 of them exited Gilded Garden's main gate and followed a winding stone path toward Magnolia Court. At this moment, the setting sun was shining and the wind was blowing gently. A golden-red afterglow spread over the horizon and dyed the sky red. Emolien secretly suppressed the smile on her lips and held Arbor's small hand as she asked. Both madams said that you only know a little. I don't know a little. Arbor nodded and thought for a moment before saying, When I played with second uncle and the others in the past, they didn't like to play with me. Whoever played with you would be in for a bad time. The crown prince's mouth twitched as he thought to himself. He drew 13 hands and played all the 9 treasure Lotus Lanterns in the same color, as if he was making cards. I only know this. Arbor blinked and said, I can't remember all the other ways to listen to cards. Emolien was speechless. This was definitely the fucking blessing of the god of cards. Otherwise, how could he make such cards? When I was in Shijo City, I rarely played a few rounds with second uncle and the others in my free time, but they always despised me. Arbor couldn't help but shake his head when he thought of this. The crown prince couldn't help but laugh. He could already imagine the sullen faces of his father-in-law and the others. Originally, playing cards was such a happy thing, but in the end, this little bastard didn't give them a chance to win at all. Most importantly, who the hell could stand the 9 treasure Lotus Lanterns? Arbor glanced at him. I haven't played for a long time. Later on, every time I asked my parents to play cards, they weren't too willing. They even said that I was young and that they couldn't always bully me and make me lose money. Arbor said expressionlessly, but ever since I was young, I've never lost when playing Madiao. Emolien couldn't help but laugh heartily. Her hearty laughter scattered over the 2 of them on their way back. What are you laughing at? Arbor glanced at her. Why don't we go back and exchange a few moves? Emolien shook his head carelessly and reached out to pick her up. He laughed and said, I admit defeat. Who would want to fight to the death with someone who is favored by the god of cards? Arbor snorted and poked his chin. You met the old prince this morning? How is he feeling? It's pretty good. Those troublemakers of the Liu family didn't succeed in the end, and even suffered a hidden loss. The Lord has been in a good mood these days. Arbor nodded. That's why any emperor is so nice. Look, after a few more beatings, he immediately became obedient. Yes, yes, yes. My wife is right. Yin held back her laughter and nodded. By the way, what gift should we prepare for the old man? Arbor's eyes lit up slightly. He tilted his head and said, I've been refining high-quality longevity pills for the past few days. What do you think of giving this to him? Yin nodded. When will the finished product be ready? Probably the day after tomorrow. Arbor said, I still want to improve the quality. I'll show it to you when I'm done. Purple Vein Longevity Pill. It can increase lifespan up to 100 years. If it can reach the level of Black Vein Longevity Pill, it can increase lifespan up to 300 years. Shouja above God level would usually spend decades in seclusion. 100 years wasn't enough for them to advance. If she only produced a purple-striped longevity pill, although it would still be very popular on the market, its effects would be of little value to Qiao Mu, who constantly strived for perfection. This kind of longevity pill was the same as the prolongation pill and longevity pill in the past. It could only be used once in a lifetime. The greater the effect, the better. Chapter 33:13. A Black-Veined Pill. Yin looked at her wife in astonishment, her eyes dancing with joy. But that's the legendary supreme-grade pill. Arbor nodded. Recently, when I was refining pills, I had a rough idea of how to do it. However, I still need some time to refine it. She wanted to refine a supreme-grade longevity pill for her grandfather. After taking such a pill, it might immediately stimulate the realm that her grandfather had maintained for several decades. Her grandfather was now an 8th-grade divine master. Who knew? He might be able to advance even further after the birthday banquet. Jojo, if old Master Moon knew that you had such intentions, he would definitely be overjoyed even if you didn't refine a black vein pill. Yin smiled and stroked the little fellow's head. Don't give yourself too much pressure. Just let nature take its course. Nothing could be forced. It was the same for refining pills and refining tools. Everything should be done according to one's heart. Forcing things too much would not be good. The little fellow blinked, then nodded his little head heavily. The two's figures disappeared into the distance under the shade of the trees. The afterglow of the sunset bathed them in the multicolored light, entangling them endlessly. When Madame Hua returned, she told her husband with a sullen face that she had lost more than 1,000,000 yuan in horse money. Mu Jingyang almost fainted from anger. You. Mu Jingyang pointed at the prodigal woman and shouted angrily, You, second sister-in-law lost, even more than me. Madame Ne Hua shrank back in trepidation and hurriedly tried to quibble. Who knew that the young crown prince consort would have such good luck? Husband, you don't know, but that crown princess actually made 13 9 treasures lotus lanterns. She made me and second sister-in-law lose 13 rounds of 88,000 yuan in a row. Slap. Mu Jingyang couldn't take it anymore and slapped that stupid woman's face. That night, the second branch was also incessantly noisy. However, the little crown princess was unaware of all of this. Nighttime. The moon was bright under the starry sky, and the night was as cool as water. A plump figure sneaked in from the side door. Lifting her skirt, she was about to run into her own courtyard. Halfway there, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. The maidservant behind her couldn't stop in time and almost bumped into her back. She hurriedly lowered her voice and called out anxiously, Miss, what are you doing? We have to hurry back to the court. If the old man finds out that you sneaked out to meet that actress again, he'll skin me alive. Go. Mu Dongni glanced sideways at the timid girl, then raised her eyebrows and looked at the figure squatting under a large willow tree not far away, digging for something. Mississippi, seeing her miss walking towards the big willow tree, the servant girl couldn't help but become even more anxious. She lowered her voice and called out, "You can't go over there, Mississippi, sister-in-law. What are you doing here?" She exclaimed, "It's dark and you're digging in the middle of the night?" I was wondering who was squatting under the big willow tree at home. So was sister-in-law. What kind of good stuff is it that you have to trouble sister-in-law to dig it up in the middle of the night? The figure digging under the big willow tree stiffened slightly. When she turned her head, she appropriately revealed a trace of surprise. "Doni? Why are you here? I saw that you were busy here alone, so I came up to take a look out of curiosity." Doni looked at her with a smile that wasn't a smile. "Sister-in-law, what kind of treasure are you digging for?" Chapter 33:14. 914. One pit is another pit. The one digging under the big willow tree was Madame Hua, the fifth branch. Seeing the curious expression on Doni's face, she hurriedly smiled to cover it up. "Alas, it's nothing. It's getting late. You should go back and rest." Doni's puzzled expression flashed, and she giggled. "Oh, sister-in-law, aren't you treating me as an outsider? I see that you're busy here. There must be something good you're hiding from me. Sister-in-law, why don't you tell me about it? Could it be that there's some money hidden underground?" Madame Hua's face stiffened. She hurriedly shook her head and waved her hand. "Oh, sister-in-law, don't talk nonsense. What money can there be under the ground? Alas, let's hurry back. It's really getting late. Let's go back and rest." Seeing that she was in such a hurry to drive her away, Doni became even more suspicious. She circled around her sister-in-law and smiled maliciously. "Sister-in-law, did you steal something from home and bury it here?" Madame Hua was startled and hurriedly cried out, "Don't accuse me. How could I steal from home? I didn't steal anything. I definitely didn't steal anything." "Sister-in-law, why are you panicking?" Doni rolled her eyes and stepped forward, pushing her sister-in-law to the side. Then she squatted down and dug the soil under the willow tree. Not long after, his fingers touched an ice-cold stone box. Doni's eyes lit up, and she hurriedly dug out the box. Madame Hua's eyelids twitched. Doni, however, was very fast. She casually opened it and saw a box full of spirit coins. There were at least 20 to 30,000 spirit coins inside, glittering with silver light. "Sister-in-law, you stole it, didn't you?" Doni shrieked. Of course, Madame Hua refused to admit it. She hurriedly shook her head with a pale face. No, how could I steal it? Don't talk about things you don't know. If it gets out, it will ruin my reputation." Doni looked suspicious. "You didn't steal it? Don't tell me you buried it here yourself. Why did you bury this box of spirit coins here?" Mrs. Hua wanted to say something, but hesitated. After a long while, she lowered her voice and said, "Doni, I'm telling you, don't tell anyone about this." Hearing this, Doni quickly nodded. Okay. Sister-in-law, go ahead." Hua looked left and right sneakily, then pulled her to the side to avoid the servant girls following behind Doni. "Tony, I'm telling you, I'm planting gold." "See gold?" Doni almost laughed out loud. "Sister-in-law, you must be dreaming. The greatest absurdity in the world. How could there be such a thing as planting gold? Don't tell me that if you bury 10,000 taels of gold underground, it will give you 20,000 taels of gold?" Madame Hua hurriedly reached out to cover her mouth and tugged at Doni with a displeased expression. Be quiet. I'm telling you this. Believe it if you want." Madame Hua angrily retracted her hand and snatched the stone box back from her. Doni pursed her lips and her eyes flashed. "Then tell me in detail, sister-in-law, do you see this talisman?" Madame Hua took out a talisman from the bottom of the box, glanced at it in front of Doni, and then immediately put it away as if it was a treasure. Chapter 33:15. For 915 fourth star, the talisman was taken back by Madame Hua, but she still carefully placed it at the bottom of the box. Madame Hua breathed a sigh of relief and then said, "Let me tell you, Doni, you have to believe it. This is an ancient golden talisman. You can definitely make a fortune out of it. It has a wide range. It can grow spirit coins, gold, silver, jade, or jewelry. I grew a set of head ornaments last time. Guess what? Mudoni was a little stunned. She looked at her sister-in-law with shining eyes and asked, "What is it? Tell me, sister-in-law." Madame Hua lowered her voice and whispered, "It grew a set of the same head ornaments for me. The luster and gloss are no different from the original head ornaments." Uff. Mudoni laughed and then glanced at Madame Hua. "Sister-in-law, do you really think I'm stupid? You're trying to fool me. How can there be such a talisman in this world? Grow gold. Grow gold and get gold. Grow the head ornaments and get the head ornaments. Can you really grow spirit coins and get spirit coins?" Madame Hua casually pushed her away and carefully buried the box of spirit coins under the willow tree again. She turned around and grabbed Madame Hua to leave. "If you reveal this to anyone, I won't let you off." The next day, Mudoni originally wanted to meet the legendary little crown princess, but because Madame Hua revealed this secret to her, her mind was a little erratic for the whole day. She sent her personal maid Jinju to watch under the old willow tree. She didn't see her fifth sister-in-law under the willow tree for the whole day, so she couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. Could it be that her sister-in-law really didn't lie to her? In the afternoon, the young crown prince consort paid a visit to second aunt and fifth aunt's courtyard. The moment she mentioned whether or not they should continue to play horse diao, those two fellows' faces darkened as they respectfully coaxed her away. The little crown princess pretended to be very angry and angrily went out. Midway, she made a detour to the prince's mansion. After getting used to the feeling, she went to Paradise Planet to continue refining medicine. Up until now, she had never tried to refine a black vein top-grade pill. One could imagine how difficult it was to refine a black vein pill. Currently, 4 of the 9 stars on her 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron had already lit up. The cauldron fire had also changed from its original red color to a faint glaze color. The cauldron fire was extremely pure, so it would naturally be of great help to her alchemy. Now, she didn't even need to pay attention to the fire anymore. What she needed to do was to put the correct amount of medicinal herbs into the medicinal cauldron. Then, she could be a hands-off shopkeeper and let the medicinal cauldron refine on its own until the sound of the pill being formed could be heard from the medicinal cauldron. At this moment, the little girl was chatting with Little Tree. They were talking about Little Tree's report to her that he needed to find a time to go into seclusion and stabilize his realm in the middle stage of growth stage. That night, Arbor did not return to the Mu family. Instead, he casually found an excuse to stay in the Wangfu. Anyway, there were still 3 days before the old master's birthday. She could go back the day after tomorrow. When she stayed in the Mu family, even when she was in the Jade Orchid Garden, she always felt that something was staring at her. How could she dare to casually enter Paradise Planet? However, it was different in the Wangfu. She could come and go as she pleased. It just so happened that these 2 days she was going to study the black vein pill for the old master, so she wouldn't return to the Mu family. The time she spent on Fish Orchid Planet was 12 times longer, so she probably wouldn't have enough time to study at the Mu family. Arbor was comforting Little Tree, telling him to go into seclusion tomorrow without worry. Chapter 33:16. 4. 916, just 1. Anyway, Xiao Shui and the others were here. Now that she was staying in Dragon Flame City, what could happen? Besides, if something happened, there was still Imol Yin and Rotten Peach Blossom at the very least. He could release Mayan as a helper. The little fellow had already made up her mind. She comforted the Little Tree with a few words and urged it to prepare. He continued to stay beside the medicinal cauldron and began to draw talismans out of boredom. After she finished drawing dozens of flying celestial talismans, she heard a crisp sound coming from the cauldron. According to his experience, the pill was about to be completed. The little guy jumped up and ran to the side of the medicine cauldron. He patted 2 streams of spiritual energy into the medicine cauldron to help it quickly condense the pill. Not long after, a fragrant smell wafted out from the medicinal cauldron. The venerable Peach Blossom, immortal, had a keen sense of smell. He was the first to smell the soothing, medicinal fragrance. He ran faster than anyone else and was the first to float to her side. What is it? What is it? Although he didn't know how to concoct pills, he was still a person with feelings. This medicinal aroma was obviously better than the previous batches of elixirs, but it was much purer. Furthermore, he felt that Jojo seemed to have made a significant breakthrough in alchemy. At this time, Xiaomu had already slapped open the medicinal cauldron, and 3 puppies dashed over from some nook and cranny. They surrounded her while barking and wagging their tails, and their beady black eyes were brimming with want emotions. Arbor looked down at the 3 puppies expressionlessly. With a light wave of his hand, several pills at the bottom of the pill cauldron flew up and were placed into a jade bottle by the little fellow. He didn't get many pills this time, only 7. One was a black vein longevity pill, while the other 6 were all purple vein pills. But what made her feel a little excited was that the black striped longevity pill had actually broken through the level of an earth grade pill, directly leaping to the divine grade. That's right, this was a divine grade longevity pill. The venerable peach blossom immortal circled around her and said anxiously, "Jojo, quickly show it to me. What is it again?" "I'll show you. You can't swallow it," Arbor said expressionlessly. The venerable peach blossom immortal blinked and asked pitifully, "I can't eat it, Arbor. It doesn't work on you." Arbor looked at him speechlessly. "But it looks delicious," the venerable peach blossom immortal muttered to himself. "If the longevity fruit is born, you'll be the first to eat it," Arbor said helplessly. "When will there be results?" The venerable peach blossom immortal looked at her pitifully. Arbor said with a stoic face, "Soon. Once Paradise Planet rises to the god domain, it will definitely succeed." The venerable peach blossom immortal widened his eyes slightly and immediately lowered his head dejectedly. He still had to wait until he reached the divine realm. How long would that take? Oh no, he had to have faith in the little girl. In the hands of this little girl, anything that was impossible was extremely possible. Thinking of this, the venerable peach blossom immortal nodded reluctantly. "All right, let me take a look." The little girl handed over the jade bottle to him. The venerable peach blossom immortal opened the bottle and looked at the light golden round pill inside. The black vein on the pill was very obvious. The venerable peach blossom immortal was slightly shocked and turned to look at her with some joy. "Jojo, did you refine a black vein pill?" "Just one." The little girl pursed her lips. "I'm not familiar with it yet. I estimate that I can only refine 1 out of 100 pills." Chapter 33:17. That's not bad either. This was a supreme grade pill with black veins. Let alone 1 in 100 pills. The pill alchemists outside probably couldn't produce 1 in 10,000 pills. Arbor nodded upon hearing this. "That's true." The venerable peach blossom immortal returned the bottle to the little stoic with great difficulty. The little stoic's lips involuntarily twitched at his grief-stricken expression. She then consoled him, "If I become proficient in refining next time, I'll refine it for you like candy." The venerable peach blossom immortal's eyes brightened abruptly when he heard this, and he stretched out his arms to carry the little stoic. "Stoic face, then I'll rely on you. Refine it well, and quickly become proficient." "Do you really think supreme grade pills with black veins can be refined like candy?" She was just consoling him. She didn't expect this guy to have such great confidence in her. When Arbor saw him randomly carrying her over, he immediately flashed out of Paradise Planet with the pill. The moment he came out, he heard the venerable peach blossom immortal shout, "Jojo, quickly come in." Arbor didn't understand what was going on. Before he could react, he heard a clap of thunder coming from the roof. The roof was broken open with a boom, and lightning struck down at him. Fuck, what was going on? What kind of heavenly wrath did he incur that a sudden bolt of lightning would strike him? He hadn't reached the 5 spirits reincarnation tribulation yet, so what was there to strike him for? The venerable peach blossom immortal flashed to his side and said with a helpless smile, "I forgot to tell you. A heaven-defying existence like a divine rank black veins pill will definitely be struck by lightning. Arbor, why didn't you say so earlier? Looking at the rolling thunder, Arbor flew out of the hole in the roof with a whoosh. At this time, the king consort, who had been alarmed by the thunder, was rushing over here with a group of people in a panic. Arbor only had time to throw down a sentence. Don't chase after me. Stop, Imperial Ant. He flew far away with a whoosh. At the same time, at the Mu estate, Hua Shi, who was digging for a stone box under the large willow tree, was suddenly startled by a sudden clap of thunder. Her hands involuntarily trembled as she held the stone box. Looking up, the entire horizon was illuminated in a snow-white color. I've really seen a ghost. She couldn't help but mutter, feeling a little guilty. Sister-in-law, Mudoni cried out, startling Madame Hua again. Her hands trembled, and she almost dropped the box. What's the matter? Hua Shi coughed. Hurry up and open the box, Mudoni urged. Madame Hua glanced at her and snorted. You don't believe me, so why are you here? Why don't you show me? Hua Shi sneered and opened the stone box. Mudoni stared blankly as a large pile of spirit coins fell out of the box. Oh my god, these spirit coins were at least twice as much as what he saw last night. Hua Shi happily took out the golden talisman and kowtowed to it. She muttered a few words and bit her finger to feed the talisman paper. Only then did she put the golden talisman back into the box and buried the box in the ground again. You're not taking it away? Mudoni was surprised. Why should I take it away? Hua Shi looked at her as if she was an idiot. Isn't it good to bury it here to make more money? Mudoni nodded suspiciously. The next day, Mudoni asked Zhang Ju to closely monitor the movements of the fifth branch. She also went to the old willow tree several times to check, but didn't see anything unusual with fifth sister-in-law. In the evening, Mudoni appeared under the willow tree as scheduled. Seeing Hua Shi dig out more spirit coins than yesterday, she completely believed her. Chapter 33:19. From the looks of it, she really looked like she wanted to strike someone to death. Rumble. Louis ran, who was gorgeously dressed as she walked over from the street entrance with her servants, jumped in fright at the sound of thunder. When she looked up and saw Arbor standing at the entrance, her eyes lit up, and she couldn't help but curse bad luck in a low voice. Greetings to the Crown Princess. Louis Ran learned her lesson. She thought that if she didn't greet this stoic-faced Crown Princess, she would be nagged by the Princess Consort again in the future, saying that she didn't know etiquette and so on. Humph! Wasn't it just a bit of empty courtesy? Who didn't know how to act? Louis Ran squatted there with her maidservant for a minute or two, but when she didn't hear Arbor's voice, she couldn't help but gnash her teeth in anger. She raised her head slightly to look at her with an impatient expression. She was purposely giving her the cold shoulder, right? Yet she saw that the little crown princess was looking up at the sky, her attention focused on the tribulation clouds in the horizon, as if she didn't notice her at all. Louis Ran couldn't help but pinch the handkerchief in her hand and gnash her teeth in anger. Greetings to the crown princess. Louis Ran stifled a mouthful of turbid air and practically yelled out loud. After she yelled out, she heard an indifferent voice enter her ears from behind. Miss Liu doesn't know how to greet people with courtesy, so continue squatting here for 2 hours and learn properly. Liu Yiran trembled all over and turned her head to look. She saw the crown prince, who was dressed in formal court attire and had a posture as tall and straight as jade, slowly walking down from the carriage. At this moment, he was sweeping his cold gaze over her. Liu Yiran's heart became increasingly uneasy, and she hurriedly stuttered. Greetings to your highness the crown prince. Lily girl, born in the countryside, has a rather loud voice. I didn't mean to speak loudly like this. After she finished speaking, she wished for nothing more than to slap herself in the face. In order to gloss over this matter, she actually slandered her own image in front of his highness the crown prince. She was about to cry from her own stupidity. However, Crown Prince Imo simply ignored her. Whether Louis Rand's image was ruined or not, it had nothing to do with him. The little crown princess also regained her senses at this moment. She leaped towards him and tugged at his sleeve, saying in a crisp voice, "Lien, look at the horizon. Is someone going through the five spirits reincarnation tribulation? I'm going to advance to the divine realm." Mo Lien nodded hesitantly. "It does look like it, but I'm not too sure. Then should we go over and have a look?" The little fellow's eyes twinkled as if she was watching a good show. Mo Lien couldn't help but laugh. "If you want to go, then let's go." Anyway, she was going back to the Mu family now. It was still early, just past noon. It was fine to go and see what was going on. What's the southeast direction? Looking at the direction, it should be near Feng Hua Temple in the southeastern suburbs of the city. Mo Lien held her small hand and said, "Let's go." The two of them boarded the carriage. The coachman rode on a spirit horse that moved at an extremely fast speed, rushing towards Feng Hua Temple. Before they even reached the place, they heard a clamor coming from afar. Mo Lien had the coachman stop the carriage by the roadside. Holding his wife's hand, he got off the carriage and looked towards the sky above Feng Hua Temple not far away. They saw a white figure floating in the air. Wisps of lightning circled around her body, causing her entire body to be enveloped in a faint purplish-blue light. It was a female cultivator undergoing the five spirits reincarnation tribulation. Arbor looked up at that slightly frail figure. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.